All right, what's up, everybody? Thanks for
What's
joining us.
up?
Episode, what is this? 476. How many times have we
Wow.
gone live? We should keep track of how many live shows we've done. That changed our life, eh? Doing these live shows made it so much
Oh,
better.
we used to record these. Oh my God. What a slot. What we put ourselves through. We used
Just
to
like we had
record
no one
them
here to, at least now we can
offline.
hang out with people while we do
Yeah.
it.
It
It's
was
like I'm
just you.
socializing.
Yeah, but it wasn't even that. Like for me, it was like when we were doing it offline recording, we would retake every flub because like we wanted to get it right. And it was early
Yeah.
days. Like we had to prove ourselves. And like we would like I remember I would retake like 3 minute things
Oh my God.
just to
Yeah,
get it
now it's
right.
nice to we retake things if we blow. But today, let's say no edits, no mistakes.
Wow, I can't believe we've never said that before.
Or okay, or like
I want to
let's try
know.
our
I'm
best.
most interested in how many times you've said that and whether or not our average mistake times are higher.
Or like what I like to think is, or what I want to say is like, let's just keep going even if we make a mistake. But I know in the moment we're like, no, let me just retake.
I think we've
But
been pretty good.
yeah, we're doing fine. Life is
I
fine.
think we've been really good actually.
We're, you
I
know
think I've
what?
had like a couple like mistake-free shows.
I think that, well, here's going to be
Here
another. I'm
comes
confident.
another.
Anyways, thanks for everyone who joined us. We got a fun chat here.
Jimmy in the chat is our newest patron. So
Oh,
thanks.
what's up? Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I thought I like I just saw you mentioned like patron cast will clarify that, by the way, Jimmy. Like Jimmy asked in a channel that I thought was invisible, but I accidentally made it visible, I guess. Like where the live chat is. Anyway, Jimmy found it. So good job. And well, I'm gonna shut down that channel
What
again.
chat? What channel is it?
It's patron cast live chat, which we used to open for like text
When you
chat.
move things into the archive, you need to go in security and
It's
like
not
set to match
it's not
the
in
rest.
it's not in the archives.
Oh, just
Yeah,
delete
I
it
got
then.
I gotta.
You're like
Anyway, I thought it was, but Jimmy Nitro on our Discord, it's all
Mhm.
caps, and like I was definitely reading it like Jiminy Cricket, like
Oh.
Jiminy Tro check.
Jimmy Nitro reminds me of Johnny Nitro, who was a wrestler that I really liked back in the day, and he was
Did
on
he
Survivor
ever
one season.
did he ever wrestle on WCW Nitro?
No,
Wasn't Monday Night Nitro? Wasn't that what it was called?
I believe I know what you're talking about. I don't know if it was called Monday Night Nitro, but it was like definitely they had a show called Nitro. But I think he's after that. I think he's
Nice.
like post. Anyway, let's start the show. We got we have our newest patron. We also have some of our oldest patrons, Shams, Kevin, and Norm. Thanks for the
You're all
thanks for the old
amazing.
timers coming here.
You're all so good.
All right,
Everyone
let's do
here
this.
is amazing. Thanks.
And wait, so when we have now,
And it is nice to do it live with people.
we have Timo Meyer return.
We have part of the Timo Meyer return. It sounds like maybe there's like another team or other conditions, but we know Zetterlin and this year's first rounder are going. Yeah.
All right, let's just talk
Pittsburgh
about the Meyer part
today?
then. If it's not on Game Day News, it's like, did it really happen? Shams will tell us when it's real. I have Game Day News open now in a tab here.
If
so
Hockey News happens, but it wasn't retweeted by Shams, did it really happen?
Yeah. Well, then I just assume that Shams doesn't trust the source. Like I'll wait until Shams retweets it, and then we know that Shams believes it.
Shams is invaluable.
It's like the goalie starts. Shams won't just retweet like any, sometimes these other sites are too quick. Like a goalie's like out first on the ice, and it's like, oh, goalie start. But it's like Shams knows what words to look for.
Thanks, Adam. I hope you have a good listen. I think we're gonna have a good show.
Okay,
I like these. I like the encouragement.
I like the encouragement. Yeah. I also like at the end, usually people write in the chat, great show. That's really nice.
But you know who still isn't with us?
Who?
Josh.
Who? Get over it. We have much better people.
Like he was there every time.
We have people. We have Shams and Kevin and Norm here every time.
Hockey
Adam.
Podcast. Hey, Pete. I'm not saying I can't.
It
doesn't mean that I don't appreciate those who are here. It means that it was a fun.
I don't even mean it. I'm just like talking.
What are you saying? You don't even know what you're saying.
I just because when someone hurts me, I need to push. I push back on them.
Oh right, yes, that is.
He left us without saying goodbye.
That to me all the time.
I hurt you all the time.
No, when I hurt you, when I like say something that you interpret as critical, like I get like really quick clap back. It's reflexive.
I need to get better.
It's a piece of you that I think
probably.
I've learned over the course of doing the show together.
I need therapy. I don't know.
Don't we all?
I mean, yeah.
Do you have a good work plan? Like, do you have access?
Yeah, I could get it I could get it for free.
Yeah.
Like up to, I think I have 2,000. Like we just got a whole new thing. I have $2,000, but I have but that's like all they, instead of like having like different things for different buckets, they just made it like $2,000 for like everything. And then you could decide like how you want to.
Modern tech bro.
So it's like, style. I could get massages, or I could go to therapy, or I can get like orthotics, whatever, but I have $2,000. So I don't know. Is that good or bad?
I don't know.
Last year I didn't use it.
I don't know.
Not all of it.
Is like dental separate?
No, dental's part of it, I think.
Oh, then that's like eye care. Like, I don't know. I'd want to. Yeah,
I think I might be wrong about that. Whatever. I don't want to like misrepresent my.
But it's definitely like decent. Like, it's better than we're very fortunate.
Like, definitely, if I wanted therapy, I can get it, and then I could tell them that I don't like being criticized, and I need to learn to like accept that's not everyone's gonna like me. It's probably very healthy.
I think we
gotta start, Brad. We gotta start the show.
Said that everyone like could use therapy.
Sure. I mean, I like to talk also like about myself, but I find it's like people don't want to hear me just blabbing about myself. So if someone is, therapy is orthotics for the brain. Perfect.
You know who has trouble? That's really funny. With therapy.
That's the episode title. Who has trouble?
Ted Lasso.
Oh yeah.
No spoilers. I have a few. I'm halfway through season 2.
2 seasons ago.
Yeah. No. I'm in the middle of the second season.
You know what? I kind of feel like, tell me if I'm wrong about this. Like, I feel like Ted Lasso, everyone was obsessed with Ted Lasso. And I think it's almost like quickly, I might be wrong about this. Tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like it's already like veering into like now people kind of make fun of it a little bit, like it's like Friends or something, like oh, you watch Ted Lasso, yeah, of course you do. Like it's almost like basic. Like it went from like being this cool new show, and all of a sudden, I just don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It is
basic. I think it's and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And you know what I love? You know what I can watch Ted Lasso. We need to start. But like its appeal is that you can watch it without it. Like everything always so far, like everything works out. Like and it took me a few episodes to realize, but like I can watch and relax and like enjoy the characters and not worry and just be like, oh, I wonder how they're going to solve this problem, instead of being like, oh no, what awful thing is on the horizon. Like the last episode I saw was like a little intense, but like still, and I'm like, I don't know. Are they changing the formula? Is something not going to be? And then it was just like my expectations are just like
I'm glad, I guess, if that's what you
easy, feel good. Like it's.
I mean,
nice.
I'm definitely gonna watch. I'm gonna definitely watch next season. Like, don't get me wrong, I like it. But yeah, I think you're right. But I think for me, almost that's like not a negative, but it's like maybe because I'm broken inside and I need therapy, right? But like I feel like I need some edge. Like it's almost like it works out. Like where's the tension?
That's it. Like I couldn't watch only that brand of show. And like it's good because it's unique. Like if every show started doing that, it wouldn't be the same. I agree. I generally need an edge, but sometimes you just want to watch something that's not going to make you mad. It's going to make you feel good. Any injustice is going to be justed. You get it.
Yeah. All right, let's start.
Or you can watch like Adam West Batman, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Wait, what's my joke now? Yes, welcome to the show hosted by two guys who we'll hope to get you a Timo Meyer return announcement by the end of the episode. I don't know.
Well, we're not being held out of the lineup.
Oh,
I don't know.
Okay,
so there's a lot of like.
I like it. It's good.
Yeah, okay.
It's good. Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who, as of now, are still.
Elon, we didn't record.
Oh, we should record.
Okay.
Definitely record.
I'm ready. Are you?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, record.
Recording.
All right.
Good call, Brian. Thank you for catching that. We would have still had the backup of the YouTube stream that I could have downloaded, but that would have sucked. Okay. Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who, as of now, are still in the lineup. We're not being held out because of trade purposes. We'll see what happens in a couple hours. I'm your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and with me to break down some trades, injuries, outjuries, hot streaks, cold streaks. We're going to have it all in this mega episode. It's going to be me, and it's going to be the fantasy hockey robot, the poobah of prognostication, the IPP MVP himself, Brian Com. Brian, how is it going on this fine Sunday evening?
It's good, Elon. I'm very happy to be here. Hello to you. Hello, everybody listening. We are thrilled to have you back for another week of fantasy hockey. Like, there's a lot going on right now, right? Like, as Elon, you alluded to in your opening, the classic Elon opening joke. There's a lot of moving pieces.
Everyone waits for that Elon opening joke.
I think some people end the podcast after that. They just want to find out what the joke was this week. But there's so many parts moving, and like, with returns not even clear. Like, we're hearing about trades that happen and not hearing about the returns for like hours later. And we're also hearing about players who just aren't playing repeatedly, which, I mean, I feel for you. I have Chychrun in one of my leagues, and it's not fun. It's a tough time, but the light is at the end of the tunnel for seeing all the dust settle and every player get back into action. Let's hope for like no visa issues for any of these guys who've been sitting out for a while. And I'm excited to break down what's happened so far and what hasn't happened yet. And of course, we'll cover the rest through the week on short shifts in our next mega show. But Elon, I'm fired up. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I really hate the players sitting out. I'm starting a playoff matchup against you, Brian. I don't know if you're aware of this, but in our joint league, we're playing each other in the playoffs next week. I happen to have one Patrick Kane, and Chicago has a great schedule. They play Monday and Tuesday to start the week, and he's not going to play.
Yeah, and he's not going to play for New York. They're going to wait until the last possible minute for cap purposes. So that stinks for you. But if it makes you feel better, I've got Chychrun. So like we're both suffering here.
Yeah, and I was thinking of dropping Gostisbehere for someone in that league to get someone with a good schedule for next week. And now he just scored a goal today, and I feel like I can't. So I don't even know what to do, but I'll figure that out after the show. Brian, we got a lot to get to, like you said. So let's dive in. Of course, after mentioning Keeping Karlsson, proudly presented by DobberHockey.com. If you've never gone to Dobber Hockey, this is going to be the week to do it, because I love how whenever there's a trade, they have an article up there written by someone very smart, and they break down the trade, the fantasy impact. And then at the end, they have that handy list of like which players kind of gained value and which players lost value. I always find it really nice to read it over. I always check it out whenever there's a trade. That's the first place I go. So check it out, DobberHockey.com. Brian, okay. So let's start with the biggest trade that happened probably this whole season. And we don't even know, like you said, the full return, but we know that Timo Meier is going to the New Jersey Devils. It's been like tweeted by Pierre LeBrun. I think we can consider this official. You were telling me that you were seeing that we know some of the return. Shayna Goldman let us know there's a first going back, which like obviously, and then Zetterlund, which, okay, I feel like there's going to have, I was thinking like maybe a Holtz or something, but I don't need to speculate. Probably by the time people are listening, they'll know who else the Sharks got for Timo Meier. But wow, so this fantasy impact is huge. Like the Devils are already so good. They just spanked the Philadelphia Flyers on Saturday to the tune of 7-0 with a stacked top six. And now it's just gotten even more stacked. Like to look at the lines, they were running Hischier, Tatar, and Mercer, the red hot Dawson Mercer, who we'll definitely get to. And then Jack Hughes with Bratt and Sharangovich. So I feel like probably Myers bumping like a Tatar or a Sharangovich. He's going to, like, obviously he's going to be playing with either Hischier or Hughes. So first off, just on Timo Meier himself, this is for sure good news, right? Like San Jose was struggling. He's like, it's gotten a little cold lately. Now he's going to be playing with a superstar, like for sure top power play, I'd assume. Like Palat has been on the top power play. Like forget this guy now. It's going to be like Hischier, Bratt, Hughes, Meier, and Hamilton. I'm assuming like that would be crazy if not, right? So like, do you agree with me that this is like Timo Meier managers should be like very happy with this outcome?
It definitely can't be bad for Timo Meier. I think that's the summary. My question is like, can it get much better for Meier in New Jersey, right? Like, I'm not sure. Again, I don't think this will have a negative impact at all. But Meier this season is doing basically exactly what we thought he would. 75-point pace, 4.5 shots per game, 112 hits already, 18 power play points. So like the power play production is there. The shots are there. The hits are there. The points, like we could have maybe hoped for a few more by now, but I don't think a whole lot more. And Elon, as you said, yeah, he's been just 1 point in his last 5 games, and a lot of losing for the Sharks happening as well. So now he goes to a New Jersey team that has the puck more often than not, and I think that will benefit. But my question is just generally, or what I'm going to be watching to see is like playing with Hughes. If he plays with Hughes, is an upgrade. Playing with Hischier, I think, is at least a lateral move. And, he's leaving Erik Karlsson, but he's becoming a teammate of Dougie Hamilton. Plus, he has that other winger that's going to be with him, like Jesper Bratt, potentially. So we're going to be watching to see what happens with Timo Meier in New Jersey. But I think the good news is it's less likely in New Jersey that Timo Meier is going, this is my gut feel anyway, that Timo Meier is going to be on any kind of cold streak as a Devil, unlike the moment that he's having now, or that he was having now, that he was having, I don't know, my time. Oh my gosh.
Okay, I'm gonna edit this.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try and save that. Unlike the moment that he's just coming out of in his final stretch as a San Jose Shark.
Yeah, only 1 point in his last 5 games. And yes, San Jose just struggles to score. Like a lot of these games are just like they only scored 1 or 2 goals. New Jersey scores a lot of goals, so he's going to be on the ice for goals. I think this is great for him. I am curious, since we're on New Jersey, and again, we don't even know like who they're sending back. They might be sending back Dawson Mercer, though that would be, I feel like the Devils, if they're going on a run here, they probably want to send someone who's not like someone who's a key part of their lineup. But
the weird part is that we have heard that Dawson Mercer is not part of the return. We don't know what the return is, but the sources say it won't be Mercer.
Okay, perfect. So then we can talk about him because this guy is so hot right now. He has 8 goals in his last 6 games. He scored in every game, a couple of them twice. He's just, the hottest guy in the league. Meier's going to come. I guess I'm kind of assuming, but we don't even know. We're going to have to see lines. It's going to be a big week of short shifts going through all the updated lines as we see the dust settle here. But assuming Mercer sticks with Hischier and Meier or something, like obviously Mercer's not going to continue this stretch, but I'm curious to know, Brian, if he's still available in free agency in people's leagues, should they be like jumping on Mercer, like almost like irregardless? I guess we could say like before and after the Meier news, and if that changed anything. But I was already going to ask you this going into today, like what are we making of this Dawson Mercer hot streak? Because for most of the season, he's been pretty bled, but also for a lot of the season, he's been in the bottom 6. He's been like on the 3rd line. All of a sudden, he's playing with Hischier and just going gangbusters.
Well, you might as well call Dawson Mercer Laura Jane Grace because he was against me this week and it really hurt. I considered adding Dawson Mercer at the outset. I chose Sharangovich instead last Sunday. I felt good about it too. I'm like, oh yeah, he's back with Hughes and Bratt. Well, Sharangovich he's gonna get at least a few points. He didn't. Spoiler. He just has 1 assist this week. It's been a very week for Igor Sharangovich. And then I saw my opponent take Dawson Mercer on Tuesday. And I was like, okay, great. That's a bit of a waste of an ad. Like, I'm not nervous about that. And we know how the rest of the story goes. Dawson Mercer went into last Sunday's games already on a bit of a roll with 3 points in 2 games and a monster 8-shot game on the Saturday. So this is like 8 days ago now. And I don't know why I didn't pay maybe a little more mind to that. I guess I was just too in love with Sharangovich on that top line where he produces. But then Dawson Mercer did something that he doesn't often do, which is he kept rolling all week long. First, Mercer scored 2 goals on 4 shots. And I was like, yeah, okay, he does that. Like, bad luck for me. It's not going to last. Then Mercer scored a goal on 3 shots in his next game. Next game, he scored twice on 3 shots. And his next game, he scored once on his only shot. Altogether, this adds up to 6 goals on Mercer's last 11 shots, 1 of those on the power play. What can I say? Dawson Mercer is in a great spot right now. He's super hot. He's scoring on more than half the shots he takes. Imagine the power you must feel when things are going this well for you for so long, that it's more likely than not, if you're looking at your recent output, that the puck is going to go in when it leaves your stick and makes it to the net. So Mercer's on fire. It's great for him. But of course, we'll watch and see exactly what happens to him with Meier's arrival, right? Because now that Meier's in the picture, that means that Mercer, Sharangovich, and Tomas Tatar are vulnerable. I assume Tatar is going to be the one booted out of the top 6, but maybe Mercer does go down and play on the 3rd line too, where we've seen him through the year. So we'll keep watching. We also know that Palat, I didn't mention this before, Elon, Palat is obviously, or you mentioned it enough, Palat is going to get the boot off the top power play. This makes a really great team even greater. So Dawson Mercer, he's not someone like I'm desperate to hold on to. I think it's like a thank you very much, and I'll see you next time I need you situation. But it's nice to see, especially the shots coming, like Mercer putting up that 8-shot game and then having 4 and 3 shots isn't something he does often. Often it is like these 1-2 shot outings. So nice week from him. I don't expect him to have another week this good for the rest of the season. So if you had him from this week, congratulations, enjoy that production. And then I guess you can look at your roster and decide how many more games you want to give him in your lineup.
Wow. Okay. I was going to ask you if it's like a pause the pod, go out and get him ASAP. You're like being like already like get ready to drop him while he's still in the middle of this run. I think if he's still in the top six, I'm holding like for sure. And by the way, New Jersey has a good schedule next week: Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday are all super busy. More on that in the matchup maximizer podcast, which we dropped yesterday. But yeah, definitely I'd be holding him, and I would be rushing to grab him if he was still available in any of my leagues. But I guess Brian is taking up that bucket of cold water here.
Yeah, and like maybe I'm just bitter, honestly. Maybe this is because I didn't add Dawson Mercer. I had Sharon Govich, although the Devils do play Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, 3 off nights this week. And especially with Meyer coming into the lineup, I would be curious to just wait and see exactly what Mercer's role is from here on out. I'm not saying to turf him real quick. I'm saying if he doesn't do anything for you for another game or two, listen, this is coming from someone who has had the Dawson Mercer experience repeatedly through Mercer's brief NHL career. He's been on my fantasy team for several moments where I thought he was going to turn into something more, and he hasn't. So this is me colored by my experience, but also speaking from experience, which I think is useful.
I guess he's super young though, but yeah, for sure, there's a very good chance that he'll be super cold next week. We had this conversation.
I chose my words very carefully. I said maybe he won't have another week like this for the rest of the year, but next year he's going to be another year older, another year more. Like, I'm not saying Dawson Mercer can't be great. I'm just saying that this is probably his peak of the season.
Well, yeah, you would think 8 goals in 6 games is the peak, but he could still be rosterable. But anyways, okay, I think we get what you're saying. I guess since we're on New Jersey, yeah, you said a great team getting even greater. Over in net, they have taken a hit. Blackwood is hurt, but really, is that a hit? Because Akira Schmidt came in and he's the one who was in net for that shutout against Philly in his first game since January 5th. So he's obviously very capable, maybe even better than Blackwood at this point. Maybe, if there were no contracts and no concerns at all, New Jersey could just play whatever goalies they want and waive whatever goalies they want and, bring them up. Maybe Schmidt would be the backup. But either way, Vanacek has actually had a couple rough outings recently. I'm assuming that we're just going to assume that Vanacek is still like the volume starter. And like, even if Akira Schmidt got a shutout, it's like, we're going to assume that Vanacek gets the majority of the starts. Or do you think that there's like some reason to be concerned? Like, I mean, it's like 2 rough outings for Vanacek and like 1 good outing recently for Schmidt. So just wanted to bring it up quickly.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning. I guess the only thing I'll say, like, I agree, Elon. Vanacek is the Devils starter. I guess we're just getting to that point of the season where once the Devils' playoff fate is determined, they might want to rest Vanacek a little more often as they get closer to the playoffs. So I don't think Schmidt is going to steal starts. Like, Schmidt's good start, the short answer is it doesn't change anything for the Devils, right? We're just still going to at least be aware, if you do roster Vanacek, that over the rest of the season, as the Devils' playoff picture becomes clearer and more set, we might see a little less of him.
Okay, and then let's look at the San Jose side of this trade where they lose Timo Meier. And I'm starting to get a little worried about one Tomas Hertl, who's been having a solid season playing with Meier up until recently, where Meier sat out for a couple games. And Hertl happens to be in a cold streak, 1 point in 5 games, just basically the same as Meier's cold streak that he's on. But now Hertl has to try to get out of it without help from Meier. I don't even know if it's worth like diving into, who gets like that top power play spot. Like, okay, in the last game, it was Couture, Hertl, Barabanov, and Nick Bonino on the top power play. So I guess we could be throwing out Nick Bonino as like, he's the Palat basically now, bottom 6, but top power play. We'll see if that lasts. If you're in a super deep league, I guess it's a little bit of a bump, but yeah, I'm more concerned to just get your take on Meier here, who's currently pacing for 69 points. His career high is 79. I'm worried that he could go down to like more of a 60-point pace moving forward. Like, I just, I mean, they have Erik Karlsson still for now, but it's not too much to work with for Hertl. I guess I could also tell you who he's been playing with at even strength. Hertl, Martin Kaut, and Noah Gregor. Those were his line mates in that last game against Chicago. And yeah, you wouldn't be surprised to see that he got no points, only took 1 shot. Actually, in his previous 2 games before this game against Chicago, 0 shots in 2 straight games. So I'm pretty nervous about Hertl. I have him in 1 league. I'm in the playoffs, and I really wish that this trade deadline could happen like later.
Yeah, it's not great news for anybody, for anyone in San Jose, right? This is bad news for Hertl. This is bad news for Karlsson. I guess I'll keep an eye on a couple guys who you didn't mention, and they are players who've played a lot with Hertl and Meier over the course of the season, except they were both on Logan Couture's line in the last game, and that's Michael Eyssimont and Alex Barabanov. So Eyssimont has 7 straight games where he's put up 3 or more shots on goal. So there's some value there if that's a category for you. But he's been doing this for a while. Like Asimon has been like since he was claimed off waivers from Winnipeg earlier in the year, since he joined San Jose, his role was kind of smallish, but over his last 10 games, he's taken 40 shots, 4 shots per game. I wonder if he shoots more. And if Asimon shoots more, I wonder like, this is crazy, okay? Because like we're going deep here, but I wonder if he scores more. Like AC Mon's expected goals rates at 5-on-5 are actually really impressive. He has 8 expected 5-on-5 goals with San Jose, but he's only scored 3, and he's shooting sub 5% at all strengths. He is also only participating on 40% of the goals scored while he's on the ice, which is probably at least 20% less than we would reasonably expect from him just because he's a forward and that's generally as low as a forward participates. So either AC Mont is good and he's just been unlucky, or he's not that great, but brute forces some impressive fancy stats and doesn't have any actual finish to back it up. But he's someone I'd love to see a little bit more from. Dauber Prospects has his upside set at like a 50-point player. He's 26 years old, was drafted in the 5th round back in 2016. So not a ton of pedigree. He's a bit on the smaller side, which to me is a positive rather than negative, but also might explain why he hasn't had much of a shake so far in the league. But he's getting more than he's ever had before with San Jose this year. So if he continues getting decent deployment, I assume the shots will keep coming, and I'm wondering if the goals will at 1.2. And then the other player is Alex Barabanov, who is, I think, going to get to try and be the guy now, right? Like he looks like a good player. He looks creative, not like fully well-rounded, and certainly not as dominant as Timo Meier. Few players in the league are, but we'll see if Barabanov can do anything with this opportunity now that he is going to be, he's the best winger on the team now. So I think they're going to be looking for something from him, and he's going to have a chance to prove himself in a way that he hasn't totally yet. So Barabanov and AC Mont are 2 guys I'm looking at, believe it or not, Elon, even more than Nick Bonino.
You know what, man? That's just kind of sad when you say that Barabanov is their best winger. It's going to be a rough end of the season, but I guess that's what you want, right? Because then they could maybe go and get Connor Bedard. Obviously, like Eklund one day soon will be their best winger, but it seems like the Sharks don't have any plans to bring him up, at least for now. All right, so that's that trade. Brian, we still have like a lot more to get to because this isn't something that wasn't even originally planned to be on the show. So we're going to get next to a bunch of injuries, and we'll cover some more trades along the way. We'll be back in just a sec. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. All right, we are back. We've covered Meier for now. Again, like the short shifts guys, Lewis, Shams, Jeremy, they'll for sure look into the lines once we get it, and like, you know, the actual games that happen throughout the week on Tuesday and Thursday. You definitely want to be subscribed to Keeping Karlsson in order to make sure you're going to get all of those episodes. But in the meantime, Brian, I want to talk about an injury here on Winnipeg. Cole Perfetti likely out for the season. On its face, it's not like the most fantasy relevant piece of news, just because Perfetti hasn't been worth rostering for most of the season. He's had little runs and he's always gotten good deployment. Like he played a lot with Scheifele and Wheeler, and then lately the lines have been shifting around a lot. But anyways, Perfetti's gone, but it's like kind of perfect timing, or maybe it's like not a coincidence that Winnipeg decided to give a pick away to trade for Nino Niederreiter from Nashville. So all of a sudden now Niederreiter is likely, I'd assume, and again, this is just me assuming, I could be totally wrong, but I'd assume he's going to slot into one of these top 6 spots that Perfetti was taking. So in the last game for Winnipeg, they were rolling with Ehlers, Scheifele, and Wheeler, and then Dubois, Connor, and Sam Gagner. So I don't know, like this is just a guess, but I'm assuming that there's a decent chance that Nino Niederreiter could end up slotting in with Dubois and Kyle Connor, or they could shake up that top 6 again, but, you know, play with 2 of these really good 5 players. So I become a little bit interested. Like it's not like Niederreiter hasn't gotten okay deployment in Nashville. Like recently he was playing with Matt Duchene, but, you know, things weren't going like super well for him there offensively, though. Recently we're looking at 4 points in Niederreiter's final 3 games with Nashville. So he is kind of holding a hot stick right now. He's likely going to get onto a good line. So Brian, I'm curious to get your take on if you would be looking into free agency to grab Nino Niederreiter if he's out there.
Yeah, I'm at least considering it. Like this puts Nino Niederreiter back on my fantasy radar, just because, well, as you said, Elon, it seems pretty easy to calculate where Niederreiter might fit into the Jets lineup. Perfetti's injured, he's gone, and Nino Niederreiter, the new arrival, can step right back in. Right now, in today's game, Sam Gagner was holding that place in the lineup with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor. I expect, that again, like Gagner to just be a placeholder there. And for Niederreiter, when he does start playing as a Jet, I expect him to have value that falls between Perfetti, Wheeler, like somewhere in there, maybe like a Igor Sharangovich mentioned earlier in the show. I think my biggest concern for Niederreiter, though, is that Winnipeg has bigger problems right now than just missing Perfetti. They were shut out 4-0 today by the Isles, and this was on home ice too. So now the Jets have been outscored 11-2 in 3 straight losses. They did put up a win against the Rangers before that run of 3 losses, but then before that win, they were outscored 7-3 in 2 previous losses. So that all means they've lost 5 of 6, been outscored handily, and they don't have a lot of time to figure things out. They can't just keep relying on Connor Hellebuck to keep them in game. So we'll see how much Nino can contribute to the cause, but it's not a slam dunk that he's going to be valuable. But if you've ever put any hope into, like I said, Cole Perfetti or Blake Wheeler or Igor Sharangovich this year, then I think you can put a similar sort of hope into Nino Niederreiter.
Yeah, blank I blank O is how we're starting the show today on Keeping Karlsson. But I don't know if that's an episode title for you. We did Timo, now we're doing Nino. Are there any others in the league that we'll be able to get to next?
Well, there's Bonino.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, well, we already covered him as well. But then looking over on the Nashville side, it's kind of interesting. So they lose Niederreiter, and Nashville's in like an interesting spot currently where there's a lot of interesting players fantasy wise that are like low rostered, which is kind of our bread and butter here, right? Because if like Philip Forsberg was doing well, we could mention it, but no one can actually add him in our league. But Nashville has a lot of guys that low percent roster that are doing really well. Like I'm looking at players like Mikael Granlund, first of all, has been dropped in a lot of leagues. He's really heating up lately. And then like kind of some lower like name players, like players that maybe some listeners haven't heard of, like Tommy Novak, 8 points in his last 4 games, has been playing on the top power play. Nashville's actually in the middle of a game right now versus Arizona. So I'm just going to go to Frozen Tools here and check out the lines in this current game. And yeah, Novak, Glass, Granlund, Duchesne, and Josi have been on a power play. And so Novak is looking really good. Brian, I grabbed him in my Dynasty League when he first got called up. He's looking like maybe this is a real keeper, not just a nobody here. So I'm excited about him. Phil Tomasino, an actual prospect with a big pedigree, unlike Tommy Novak, has also been hot. He's been getting points pretty much every game since he got called up, and today is no exception. I'm seeing that Tomasino has an assist on a Yakov Trenin goal. Oh, Josi just scored, assisted by Tommy Novak. So Novak and Tomasino both. And by the way, Cody Glass, someone who we were talking about before when we were excited about his deployment, he has a point today as well. So there's some young, exciting players on Nashville that are obviously like excited and ready to step into any role that Niederreiter will leave open. Right now, Novak seems the most exciting, getting a top 6 and top power play role. Are these guys that you're ready to jump on? Like I'd assume you'll say that Granlund is like the Nashville forward that you would want the most, but maybe not. Actually, Novak is actually on a hotter streak. So I'm curious to say, outside of Philip Forsberg, who would you add to your, let's say you have an open spot right now on your cupful team, you have to add a Nashville player, and you could take anyone aside from Forsberg. Who would you take? Oh, or Duchesne. You can't take Duchesne.
Okay, all right. Okay. I was gonna, I knew you meant it, but I was still gonna run with that anyway. I think I'd go with Granlund just because he's the most talented, and when Forsberg's back, he's the most likely to still find himself in a pretty good situation. But Novak is definitely worth a look. I'll channel my inner Rosie O'Donnell here. Tommy, can you hear me? Did you ever watch? This is too long ago for probably most people listening. Okay, well, so Novak had like this other streaky run a little while back when he made his first appearances for Nashville this season. He had 8 points in 10 games in December and January. And now with this current run that Tommy Novak is on, he's on a 62-point pace, 4 goals his last 4 games. The downside of those 4 goals is that they've come on just 6 shots. So you're not going to get a whole lot of goals while you are taking just 6 shots on net over 4 games, which is like 1.5 shots per game on average. Novak sort of has this reputation, though, as a past first player from his time as a pro so far. He was a 3rd rounder, 85th overall back in 2015. He's now 25 years old and really just getting his NHL career started after having been basically a point per game player in the HL over the last 4 seasons. But that point per game production has been super heavy on assists. So it's actually strange to see him finally come up, get his first taste of the NHL, and suddenly start scoring, which he's at a rate he never has. All of Nashville has been doing that, though. They've been on fire lately. I don't know if you remember, Elon, but on a show, I think it was last week, they had scored 7 against Florida. I'm like, okay, all right. I'm not going to get too excited about any of these single game performances here that the Predators put up against Florida. Bob had a bad game. They only took 26 shots. And then sure enough, followed up. The Preds have followed that up with 14 goals in their next 3 games. Still not shooting very much, like still 26, 26, 31 shots. And now they're scoring on Arizona too. Altogether, Nashville is shooting nearly 20% as a team over this run. So I think, like this is all for me to say, like, go ahead and get your Tommy Novak, get your Mikael Granlund, go ahead and get your Philip Tomasino, but the good times are not going to keep rolling here in Nashville. I don't think I'm going to get fooled by the team shooting at least twice, scoring on at least twice as many shots as they should for a whole lot longer. I guess the risk here is I'm going to be reverse fooled, where they are going to keep doing that somehow against the odds for another few games. It's basically Dawson Mercer, Elon, but as a full team.
Right. Here's my question to you, though. Like, you're saying you think that they're, not going to be able to score on as many of their shots as they have been, which makes sense. Is there any room for possibility, though, that we should open that maybe they'll just start shooting more? Or do you think or is that harder to assume will happen because I guess it's a whole season? Is this a more recent thing that they haven't been shooting a lot, or you're just basing this on they're just not a team that shoots enough to score this many goals?
I think they're just not a team that shoots enough to score this many goals. Their shots seem to rise and fall, but over the last, I'm going through their numbers since, I guess I can stop at the new year. And if I'm trying to do some quick math, they have 600 shots. Oh, that's easy. 600 shots in their last 20 games. So it's about 30 shots a game, which is just shy of what the league average is right now, which is 31 shots per game. And to me, that suggests that, they are a lower shooting team. There's no indication here that they're trending up in shots. If anything, they're taking fewer shots than ever. However, that also might be a function of the fact that they're scoring every time they take a shot, which means that they are then being less offensive, right? They're like, okay, guys, we're not going to shoot the puck a whole lot. We're not going to generate huge chances. We're not going to take risks. We're just going to play safe defensive hockey. So it's hard to really ascertain all of it here, Elon. But my guess is that Nashville continues being at best a league average shot taking team, and their shooting percentage as a whole team regresses to the point that guys like Tommy Novak and Philip Tomasino and even Mikael Granlund aren't that really rosterable. We go back to just, Duchesne, Forsberg, Josi, Saros.
Man, you're really pouring the cold water. Because I will point out, Tommy Novak now has 9 points in his last 4 games, so we could have a lower shooting percentage.
He's on a 62-point pace. He's doing well, and this is the first we've seen.
And he's on a line with Duchesne and Granlund, and he's on the top power play. I feel like it's easy to just be oh, they're having a high shooting percentage. Don't worry, he's not going to end up being anything. But it's I think I'm pointing out a guy who's looking like a pretty good ad in fantasy here. I don't want to just completely say don't forget about Tommy Novak. He's nothing. Okay. It's he's doing good.
I'll repeat my core point here on Novak, which is that he's getting a lot of his points via goals. He's getting a lot of assists too, and that's good. But expect the goals to dry up. If the assists stay, he's barely I think he's fringe rosterable, and there's no shots to go with those assists. So that's the picture I'm painting here. And I'm sorry that it's not exciting for your personal fantasy dynasty situation.
All right. I'm going to drop him. Forget
No, don't do that.
Okay. All right. Next injury here. So we have an Alex Tuch injury over in Buffalo. And it was like one of these things where it kind of got announced that he was on the IR and we didn't even know the reason. I think since we've seen that it's like an upper body. Oh, no. Look at this. Brian, by the way, new feature for GameDayTweets.com. We have the news section. That's been there for a while. Just recently, I added the ability to filter by player. So now I could just bring up the Alex Tuck page on GameDayTweets.com for news. And of course, Shams, always up to date. So I see here a tweet here from Heather Engel. Kevin Adams says Alex Tuck is week to week with a lower body injury on the longer side of week to week. Anticipates he'll be back before the end of the regular season. So the Sabres will have to continue their playoff aspirations without him. But at the same time, we're going to have to figure something out for fantasy, right? Because Tuck is having such an incredible season, Brian, like underrated. Like I feel like we haven't even talked about him like that much. I know we talk sometimes about how Alex Tuck is like good and you like him, but he has 62 points in 57 games. He's pacing for like 90 something point. He's pacing for more points than Jack Eichel. And Jack Eichel is the person like that he was traded for, along with like the Sabres got Tuck, Krebs, and a 2022 first that turned into Noah Ostland, who I know, or Ostland, that I know people are really into as a good prospect. It's looking really good, I would say, for Buffalo on that trade in the short term. Obviously, Eichel still has like great upside and hasn't been the most great season over in Vegas with injuries. But all that said, Alex Tuck is out. This opens up a huge opening for the Sabres, right? Because that line with Thompson and Skinner has been great all season. Obviously, a key part of why Tuck has been able to produce so much. And of course, Tuck's been on the top power play. In the most recent game, which was today versus Washington, I'm seeing it was Jack Quinn on the top line with Skinner and Thompson. And then I'm seeing Victor Olofsson taking Tuck's spot on the top power play with Cousins, Thompson, and Skinner. And Dahlin's been out this game also. I'm noticing. I saw he's day to day, so not that big a deal. So Owen Power's been on the top power play. So I guess a couple things. First of all, Owen Power, very interesting while Dahlin is out. And then either Jack Quinn and or Victor Olofsson now get more exciting with Tuck out. So Brian, I want to give a quick rundown on why you're not interested in Jack Quinn, Victor Olofsson, or Owen Power.
No, because I am interested in them, Elon. I'm not going to fall into that trap that you've just set. There was a bit of line shuffling happening in Buffalo lately anyway, but Jack Quinn, you really summarized it, Elon. On line one, that had a successful, Buffalo just hammered the Caps today, right? So Jack Quinn on that top line won the goals battle 2-1, and Quinn had an assist on both those goals, but he didn't take a shot in 13 and a half minutes of ice time. Then you have Vinny Hinostroza making his triumphant return to the NHL as a call up to play on that second line with Casey Middlestat and Dylan Cousins. And that second line won the goals battle 3-1. And Hinostroza had one of those goals and an assist on another in 14 and a half minutes of ice, along with 3 shots on goal. Both these guys seem like a pretty interesting add to me. And then you've got Victor Olofsson, going up to the top power play where he's been for a while, but he's still not doing a lot, like a lot of 1-0 shot games, including the most recent one where he took just a single shot in 16 and a half minutes. So like, if I'm going exactly by the numbers here, which Sabre I want to add with Tuck out, if the last lines stay the same for the next game, then I'd be going Hinostroza, Quinn, and Olofsson. And Elon, I'm wondering if you can talk me out of that order.
Yeah, you're wrong about Hinostroza, I think. Like, he's for sure going to get bumped down at some point. Like, I guess not for sure, but like...
Why? They won. His line dominated.
Maybe for one more game.
He did well.
Okay, fine. So you could go and add Vinny Hinostroza. I hope that it's not a...
Okay, just put them in order. Put them in order for me.
I will go Olofsson first, then Quinn, then... Who are some other options here before I could put before?
Oh, well, I didn't even mention Owen
Tyson
Power.
Jost.
Oh my God, get out of here. You're just mad that I hurt Novak's trade value for you.
Maybe you're right. I don't know. It was a good game for Hinostroza. He's just been such like I'm playing the Brian now. I'm just like, he's done nothing for so long.
Hinostroza played the more time than Jack Quinn.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Okay, I shouldn't say that, but all interesting. I guess we'll wait for
9
the lines
points in 11 games in the AHL.
Okay. Check the lines. I take it all back. I wish I could just delete this part of the podcast, but we're not doing edits today as we decided. So we're just going to go forward with it. Hinostroza, if he stays on the top, I want anyone up playing with Tage Thompson, right? That's really the point.
But that's Jack Quinn.
Yeah, well, you're saying that Hinostroza was there at some point.
No, I'm saying he was on the second line and doing well.
Oh, I'm seeing here on Frozen Tools that there was 1 minute and 50 seconds where Skinner, Hinostroza, and Thompson played together. So who knows?
Well,
seems like we're going to maybe see some new lines next game. So you're going to have to follow at Game Day Lines to see. But yeah, so there's an opening here. We'll have to see who
names
gets
don't matter. So would you prefer the guy playing with Tage at even strength versus the guy playing on power play 1? So like, let's say this is a last game, it would be Quinn versus Olofsson. Who would you rather?
Yeah, it's tricky. I guess it depends, obviously, who Olofsson is playing with at even strength. But yeah, if he's playing with Krebs and Paterka, which is like great players for the future, I don't know. It's very close. I don't know. I would probably take the guy on the top line, I guess, if I had to pick one.
Okay, so Jack Quinn first.
Yeah, yeah. But of course, the problem is that if the lines could change mid-game, that makes them less exciting as opposed to someone who you think is like more locked in. Anyway, and then like I mentioned, I don't think it's for long, but Dahlin is day-to-day. So for any games that you could get Owen Power while he's on the top power play, did he get any points today in this game against Washington? Let's see here. One assist.
You're gonna have to make an edit point there.
That's okay.
Okay.
You don't have to make it. Okay, I'll just edit point now.
Okay.
I see. It's one assist for Owen Power, not on the power play, but he had lots of time, so could have. So he's obviously more interesting. Next injury I wanted to bring up is over in Philadelphia, where Travis Konecny is on the IR. He has an upper body injury. We don't know exactly how long he'll be out, but man, Philly looks a lot less interesting without Konecny in the lineup. Also without Sean Couturier all season. Like this is a team that could have had some interesting offensive opportunities, but now, like remember when Kevin Hayes was someone that we were super interested in? Hayes now just 1 assist in his last 7 games. Like every player on Philly is cold. Like we talked about how they just got whipped by New Jersey 7-0. Konecny wasn't cold. 5 points in 3 games. He had a cold stretch, but he was finally heating up before this unfortunate injury. Brian, I'm just going to throw it out there. Like, is there any Philadelphia forward worth holding right now with Konecny out? Like, I think I'm going to take one of those Nashville guys, like a Tomasino, Novak, Granlund, give me like Jack Quinn. I think over every Philly for like, if I'm talking about for next week, like just right now, I'm trying to win a playoff matchup or like I'm trying to get into the playoffs. I just don't see a reason to hold a Philly forward, but please tell me why you disagree if you do, because there's probably like a lot of them available in free agency right now, including Kevin Hayes. I'll bet you he's getting dropped all over the place.
Yeah, he is getting dropped all over the place, and for good reason. I mean, it says a lot as we followed Travis Konecny's success this season. The common line is that he has been a participant on, or at one point, 90% of the goals scored while he's on the ice. And that just speaks to how central a role he plays. You know, usually we'd say, oh, that's not sustainable. But with Konecny, we're like, well, that is the only way Philly scores, right? Like he was important to either creating the goal or scoring it himself. And you wonder just where the offense is going to come from. When you look up and down this Flyers depth chart, I don't see anybody who's shown any measure of consistency or ability to drive a line here. Like I'm trying to even stretch the definition of that, and I'm really, really failing. In fact, Elon, like it's just going to be a painful, like I have Tony DeAngelo. Like you keep asking about Philly forwards. I don't know about Philly D. Tony DeAngelo plays twice this week, and he has done a whole lot of nothing himself lately too. Last week you asked me about him because he had been quiet. I'm like, he's still shooting. Don't worry. And then of course he was shotless earlier this week, had 1 hit. Other than that, it was a cardio session for him. But he is pointing, but not very often. Just 3 points in his last 9 games now. Those 3 points came in his last 4, but he's also only taken 7 shots in his last 4 games. This is Tony DeAngelo, who I am not contemplating dropping. Like I think I need him, but if push comes to shove and it comes down to it, like with Konecny out, this is basically me saying with Konecny out, it's going to be a tough slog for anybody in a Flyers jersey to put up points. And there might be some other names like James Van Riemsdyk could be somebody who's going to be traded and out the door soon enough too. So I'm excited to see if anyone can prove me wrong. But yeah, Elon, it looks pretty sad in that Philadelphia lineup.
Yeah, and let's not forget in net, we were talking about now forwards and D, Carter Hart, who was having this nice bounce back season and looking like the high pedigree prospect that we expected him to be after a couple down years. He's slipping big lately. I don't know if it's his fault, but he's had now 4 straight sub 900 save percentage games. One sec. I linked to a tweet here and I don't even remember what it is. Let's see what this tweet is that I put in my notes. I hope it's something interesting. Why is it taking so long to load?
It better be.
Here we go. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, to put things into more context with how bad Philly has been, like they are like 2-7-1 in February so far. According to this tweet I have from Jordan Hall, they're scoring only 1.8 goals a game. They're like letting in 4 goals per game. So like even if Carter Hart has a good game, it's unlikely they'll get the win because there's no one to score. And he's like letting in lots of goals. Like I just wonder, Brian, at this point, you're saying you're worried about D'Angelo. What if you have Carter Hart? Like, can you afford, like, maybe in a league where volume is valuable, then sure. But like Airson also has come in and done okay. So who knows if he gets more games. But even regardless, like, let's say if you're talking about like a categories league where you actually care about your save percentage and your goals against average, can you afford to start Hart at this point? Or is he becoming like too risky?
I would be afraid to start Carter Hart. Like in any league where anything other than volume is going to hurt you, like volume is the one reason, a better frame. Volume is the best reason, the only reason to roster Carter Hart. He can play his heart out, and no pun intended, that would be way too cheesy, and it still wouldn't be enough. In fact, Elon, like you mentioned, his last 4 starts have been sub 900, but I'm looking over his last month. In Carter Hart's last 9 games, he is playing 22 save points above his expected Fenwick save percentage. So a 955 versus the expected 933 at 5-on-5. This guy's standing on his head. That's better than he's played all season long. And he's had some great runs earlier in the year too. Sort of had like a peak, valley, and technically he's in another peak, although you wouldn't know it just by looking at the save percentages that he's been putting up. There's been some bad in there too, but Carter Hart is having a great year. Unfortunately, it's not going to help any fantasy managers unless your league counts. Expected save performance above expected for a goalie, or volume. Those are the 2 ways Carter Hart will help you. If he's not doing that for you, then there's not a whole lot else he can.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see him dropped in some leagues pretty soon. So it's a bummer. I'd love to see Carter Hart's one of those players, kind of like a John Gibson, who we'll get to later on in the show, actually, kind of like a Vejmelka. Like, I'd be curious to see how this goalie would do on like a really good team. Because like, you wonder if all of a sudden Carter Hart and Vasilevsky swap teams. I'm sure like Hart isn't as good as Vasilevsky, but maybe he would be like having like one of these seasons where you'd be like, oh, maybe Vezina candidate, because it's just like such a different world. And it's wild just to think about how these goalies, like, this is their career. Like, they have a short career. They get like 10 years, maybe a little more if they're lucky. And it's like they spend so much time. If you're spending so much time on a bad team, like, this is his prime that he, I hope at some point he'll get a chance to play on a good team. But I guess eventually he'll become a UFA. All right, Brian, we still have a couple more injuries. I wanted to look into Patrick Kane not playing for Chicago anymore and what happens there. And then we'll have a lot more to get to. So we'll get to all that in just a sec. We're listening to Keeping Karlsson. We're listening. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. Brian, I did an ad break already. This is already the second ad break. You were too busy in the chat.
I missed it.
You're not listening.
I heard everything you said.
I know.
You were talking about Alex Tuch.
I'm clapping back. Right.
Because I didn't even insult you. I just
insulted me by chatting while I was talking.
Oh.
Then in my head, it's like,
I'm sorry.
Who would do such a thing?
Okay.
All right. So one more period before the end of part 1, before overtime. We are back, Brian, to finish the 3rd period of game 1 of our doubleheader here tonight on the Mega Show. And next up, I wanted to talk about an injury that on its head, not too much fantasy relevance, right? Trevor Moore is hurt again in LA. I'm not sure for how long. I guess the interesting thing here is that Kevin Fiala has jumped to the second line in his absence, which is obviously very good news for someone like a Victor Arvidsson or a Phil Deneau, because I feel like they could only be improved in their situation by playing with a Fiala, just like a Lizotte and an Anderson Dolan, and all these people have benefited from playing Fiala in the past. So if Fiala sticks on that second line, that pretty much makes the third line useless, right? Like all of a sudden you're Velarde, Lizotte, Iafallo. I don't even think this is like an interesting take or anything. This is just like obvious. The only reason that was an exciting line was because Kevin Fiala was there, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same deal in from when he was in Minnesota, right? Like we weren't looking at any of those guys this year being like, Fiala's gone. Should we consider them? And the answer was an easy no. Last week we were talking about, is Blake Lizotte worth following up on? Well, he's worth following up on, but was he maybe coming into his own? And the answer is no, he wasn't. So if you did get a spec share on Blake Lizotte, you can sell that for as much as it cost you, which is hopefully nothing.
Yeah, and who knows how long this will last. I don't know how long Trevor Moore is out, but in the meantime, Fiala had a goal today. In the meantime, Arvidsson had a goal today. Deneau, I think, a couple of assists in this loss to the Rangers. It was 5-2. Yeah, 2 assists for Deneau. So I think these guys might be available in your free agency, and I think you want a piece of them if they're going to be playing with Fiala. Arvidsson also had a goal a couple games ago. I don't know. He runs hot and cold, right? But I definitely like him more now playing with Fiala instead of Trevor Moore. Another guy on LA that's on a bit of a hot streak that I wanted to touch base with you on is Sean Durzi. I feel like a guy who we've talked about a lot over the season. You generally are like not expecting Durzi to keep up any hot streak that he's on whenever I ask you. So I'm curious if you'll have the same tune today, because he had a stretch of points in 5 straight games before going pointless against the Islanders on Friday. And now he's and then pointless again against the Rangers today. So I guess he's already fallen off a bit, but yeah, I just wanted to get your take on Durzi. I have him in our league going into our playoff matchup. Should I drop him to get someone who plays more games?
No, you should hold on to him. And I'm going to try and let you decide whether that's reverse psychology or not. But for the listeners, Elon, don't listen. I think Durzi he's okay, right? Like he's on a 45-point pace for the season. That's about what we could expect. And I think he has overperformed to get to that 45-point pace with 14 power play points that have largely come from the second unit. That's more than what I would expect full season production from the second power play unit to be. And Durzi, of course, has only played 58 of the 82 games that we consider a full season. So at 5-on-5, like definitely kudos to Durzi for his production, but I think he's probably like a 40, maybe 45 point player over the course of 82 games in his current deployment situation, which could still be worthwhile to you, right? And it's nice that he goes on these runs from time to time too. It's been a great year for him. He's proven to be rosterable for most of the season. So I wonder if he will be rosterable the whole rest of the way, especially as I expect the power play points are going to not return. Like he had a huge stretch in November and December where he pointed in like 5 or 6 straight games on the power play. And since then he has, 3 power play points in his last 22 for Sean Durzi. So seeing as how that's a big part of how he built this 45-point pace, that's why I'm expecting him to maybe drop closer to 40 by the end of the season.
All right, that's reasonable, Brian. I just dropped him, and I added David Krejci, who plays.
No,
you're in trouble now, buddy. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for Krejci. Not gonna be able to fit him in on
enter waiver claim on Sean Durzi.
Yeah, there you go.
35 fab.
By the way, Andy was saying we should bring up Matt Roy since we're on LA. He did score today. Before that, he was pointless in 3. Before that, he had a 1 goal, 1 assist game. Anything here? He's had some games with some big shots. Matt Roy is a defenseman on the LA Kings. I don't know if we've talked about very much on Keeping Karlsson, but Brian, Andy is one of our top producing patrons in terms of content in our Discord. So how can we not take his request and talk about Matt Roy?
Yeah. Let's talk. I think we have talked about Matt Roy. We've covered him also a couple times over the years too. Sometimes he produces, more often he doesn't, and good for him for having a nice little run of production. This is a guy who's been like a 25 point player tops through his career, and I expect that to continue to be the case. I don't see anything that's changed, especially because he is now like decidedly, he's actually down in minutes this year compared to the last 2. And one of those reasons is the emergence of the recently signed and locked down Mikey Anderson on a top pair with Drew Doughty.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. There's our Matt Roy content for the evening. By the way, since we're on the Kings also, by the way, today they played Jonathan Quick against the Rangers when Quick had already played the last game. What are you doing? Are you trying to lose?
And
like, anyway, so
Quick, like, that was quick.
Yeah. What was it? 7 shots. And then he got pulled because he let in 3 goals. And then Copley came in and did okay, but it wasn't enough because the Rangers were already up and they ended up winning 5-2. So hopefully the Kings learned their lesson. And for Copley managers like myself, I just want to go to the coach and be like, hey, okay, you had your fun. Stop trying to make, like, Jonathan Quick gave you a win. Be like on a back-to-back. Just be happy with that. And don't try to fly too close to the sun and give him like 2 games in a row. Don't be dumb here. Okay.
I feel like the Kings were trying to see if maybe, just maybe, if they want to be like seriously contending for the playoffs and in the first round, couldn't they maybe use Quick to spell Copley just a little? Like, is he a half decent spot start backup option for them? And well, they got their answer today, as they have every other time they've tried to play Jonathan Quick, and that was a resounding no. Right now, they're second in the Pacific, right? I'm just looking at their points percentage to, yeah, they're basically about tied with the Oilers, and considering games played and whatever. And I don't know, it seems like the Kings should probably be in the market for a more reliable backup at the deadline if they can afford it. We'll see.
Yeah, the problem is they'd have to get someone to also take Quick back. But I guess he's last year of the contract.
Would they though, or they just hold on to Quick?
Like, and have 3 goalies?
Well, like, they don't need to use Quick.
Yeah, but they can't send him down to the minors, and so it's, you don't want to be holding 3 goalies.
Like, wasting a roster spot
Yeah.
on him. Yeah. Well, I mean, so what would you rather? Would you rather not have somebody? Because Copley he's been okay. He hasn't been as good as he started out. He's still been, like, he's had his good days and he's had his bad days. More evenly split lately than they were at the start of his run. So what would you rather have? An actual backup that you could trust to give Copley some rest and Quick in the press box, or just get destroyed, 1 out of every 5 games when you're forced to start Quick?
No, I think you want another. I think what you do is you go to Arizona, who's always willing to take on contracts. You trade Quick and someone really good and a pick and whatever, and get Vejmelka, and there you go. Problem solved.
Boom.
Oh, and give something even better, and then get Chikrin also.
How many teams would have their problems immediately solved by Karel Vejmelka?
I mean, I don't know.
He would solve a lot. Like, he's out there and available. I wonder what he's gonna get on the market, because there's a lot of teams who could use someone just like him.
Yeah, well, he's cost control
medium and long term.
Yeah, like, he's under contract still for a couple of years for a low amount of money. So I'd assume that he would be really valuable to a lot of teams. I don't know if if Arizona would trade him. Why am I thinking of Nashville? I don't know. Anyway, Brian, let's continue on here with not an injury, but yeah, we brought up Patrick Kane and how he's not playing. Apparently, he might not get traded. Apparently, it was his agent said something like he needs to contemplate what he wants to, because Patrick Kane has a no trade clause, right? So that's the whole thing. It's up to him whether he gets traded. And I've seen tweets about he only wants to go to the Rangers. That's the only team he's considering. So I don't even know what the situation is. He sat the last game. Maybe he's going to tonight decide, you know what? I do. Apparently he flew back to Chicago while the rest of the team went on a road trip to California. And maybe he was sitting in his room, just looking at his photo album of all the good times and trying to decide whether he wants to move on or not. But assuming Kane has played his last game in Chicago, are we in a Philly situation where we just don't have anyone that we're interested in? Because specifically, I think the real tricky guy is Max Domi, right? Because he is also someone who's likely to get traded. And he's on such a crazy streak, 12 points in his last 6 games. And he scored a goal and took 8 shots in his last game against San Jose. And this was not playing with Patrick Kane. He was playing on a line with Kurashev and Athanasiou. Domi was clearly the best player on the team. I don't think that's an unfair thing to say at this point. So I guess my general question is, I've always thought of Domi, or at least lately, as someone who I'm interested in if he's on a good line, but I don't think of him as he's Max Domi. He's a really good player. I want him. But are we getting to a point where we need to consider the possibility that actually now Max Domi is good again, like we thought he was in his first couple of years of his career? If he gets traded somewhere, are we interested? Or do you think that's just no, he needs to have good line mates to be good? I'm just curious to get your current vibe check on Max Domi and his skill, regardless of line mates.
Yeah, it's a great question, because Max Domi, for the first time in his career, his stat line is elite. 12 points in 6 games, 4 goals, 8 assists. And as you mentioned, Elon, he's got shots to go with it too, which he has not regularly had through his career. This is a guy, Max Domi, the last 2 seasons, he took fewer than 2 shots per night. And then 2 seasons before that with Montreal, he took 2.5. But before that with Arizona, also fewer than 2 shots per night on average. So all of a sudden, for him to be taking more than at least 2 shots a night, and often more, it's huge for him. Has he turned over a new leaf? I don't know, Elon. He's 27. He's maybe a tricky guy to really project, because it seems that everywhere he's been several places already to be at this point in his career, 27 years old, and already with is this his 5th team? Arizona, Montreal, Columbus, Carolina. I don't even remember him being on Carolina. Do you? Last season he was with Columbus and Carolina. Elon, who do you think he played more games for? Like, I can't picture him.
He started in Columbus and then he got traded to Carolina, right?
Oh, right. He started in Columbus because we were like, maybe he could be that center. Yeah. Anyway, he's been around, and I think there's a reason he's been around, which is that a team sees potential in him, and then they don't see him able to sustain, any level of two-way play that makes them trust him enough to give him a starring role. Of course, in Chicago, that's like an asset right now to have no two-way play. Like, go out, be exciting, create offense, and do absolutely nothing on defense, and we'll be into you. The thing is that I've also heard that Domi is like, his name is in trade rumors too, so he might be on his way out as well. But in the meantime, he's probably enjoying, for the first time in his NHL career, getting an opportunity to be the guy and probably to just do whatever the heck he wants out there, because the expectations for Chicago are to lose every single night. And so even if he scores a couple times, his defense will make sure that that's made up for on the other end.
Okay, yeah, I think that it'll be really fun. Yeah, like I mentioned that he's probably going to be on the move, but yeah, I'm very curious to see how he'll do in a new situation, like not with Patrick Kane, if he'll be able to keep up this great season that he's been having. All right, Brian. So I guess with that, we might as well take another break and end part one. I've got a lot of fun stuff I think planned for when we come out of the break. I want to go through a bunch of defensemen. We've talked about a few so far. We talked about Sean Dursey. We'll see if there's any that you're more interested in. Just a lot of D on my mind, actually, like guys on hot streaks, guys in new situations, guys on like big cold streaks. I'm talking about you, Aaron Ekblad. And yes, we're gonna do some D, and we still got some injuries, and or no, I guess we did the injuries. We got some outjuries I want to talk about. Basically, a bunch of goalies are healthy now that we could get your take on. Then I got hot and cold streaks. So I don't know how we're gonna fit it all into an hour, but we're gonna do our best to try.
We have just as a nice bookend from the start of the show, we finally have the full return from the Timo Meier trade. So the Devils get Timo Meier and like bottom pair defenseman Scott Harrington, and the Sharks get Shakir I knew I was going to mess it up. Shakir Mukhamadullin. I wish I could say that better. Shakir Mukhamadullin, Fabian Zetterlund, Andreas Janssen, Nikita Okotiuk, a 2023 first and a conditional 2024 first. So I don't know who Nikita Okotiuk is, but I know Mukhamadullin is like a half decent prospect, at least. I'll have to look more into these names, but there it is.
I think clearly the real return is like these two firsts. Like that's the most exciting part. Yeah, no, like I don't feel like any of these guys are players that we're gonna have to like talk about now on San Jose as like, oh, is this person gonna like really do well? At least like for this season. Maybe Zetterlund could take one. Like we're talking about a very sparse top six in San Jose. So actually Zetterlund could be someone that could get one of those roles. Like Brian, you were talking about AC Mont or Barabanov. Like so I feel like Zetterlund is maybe not that much worse than those guys. But yeah, it's I think it's not bad for Sharks. I don't know. I guess I'm not one of these like big guys just give a take on like the trade overall, but I think 2 firsts for Timo Meier. Can't really complain.
2 firsts and oh my gosh. 2 firsts and Mukhamadullin is a first rounder also from 2020 who's picked 20th overall.
Okay. So yeah, let's see how it turns out. Well, we'll have to check back in like 4 or 5 years and see how this trade worked out for San Jose. All right. So with that, Brian, like I said, we're going to come back with lots more. Hope you enjoyed part 1. If you want to listen to more, just open up your podcast app. If you're subscribed properly, as we, implore you to do, then you should already have part 2 waiting and ready for you. So we'll talk to you soon. See ya. Yes, welcome everybody to the next episode of Keeping Karlsson, which is just a continuation of the previous episode. We're calling this part 2 of episode 476, as Brian and myself, Elon Dubrovsky, will continue to dive into everything going on in the NHL that can be of benefit to you and your fantasy team. I'm talking injuries, I'm talking outjuries, talking defense. That's where we're going to start. And I'm going to have to change my voice to the excited voice because we've got an hour to get through a lot. Brian, how are you feeling? An hour into the show, we know the Timo Meier trade. Is there anything else we need to know before we move forward, or do we have all the information we need?
I hope we have all, like, everything is changing constantly. So I don't know. Like, I'm trying to keep one eye on Twitter as we record, but we will, we'll see. If you want to know more about those prospects in the New Jersey deal, by the way, EP Elite Prospects has an unlocked blog post on them that they just tweeted out, epringside.com. That's usually a pretty good place to start. Also, you can go to their Dobber Prospects profiles too, but a big win that the Devils did not trade Nemec, Holtz, or Mercer, right? San Jose didn't get
Mhm.
any of their 3 top organizational prospects. You would have thought they would have gotten one. I
Yeah,
guess that's
no,
because Meyer's unsigned and that was part of the deal, but
yeah, I mean, for sure. And now imagine if New Jersey can sign Timo Meyer. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into their whole cap situation, but if they can now extend him, I feel like the Devils don't need these picks, right? Like they've got a good core set up and ready to go for the next few years. So this is going to be a very strong contender for a while now. So exciting for any New Jersey fan. And Brian, like I said, I wanted to start with like a bunch of defensemen on my mind, and let's start with one in Boston, who now I feel like Boston Bruins fans must be a little bit like unhappy with this trade because I think the Bruins are the favorites in the East right now. They've been having such an insane season. They're 45-8-5 now, and they just traded for Dmitry Orlov. They got him and Garnet Hathaway from Washington, and they gave a pretty price, like a first, second, and a third in various years in order to obtain Orlov. But, you know, that's like a really key defenseman. Like, he's not going to be great for fantasy. Like in the first game, by the way, no points for Orlov, no power play time. He did play shorthanded, right? So this isn't going to be someone that you're like in Washington. There were times when Orlov was valuable in fantasy. He would get some like secondary power play time. But now I think that he's pretty much just someone who's going to help the Bruins go on a cup run. But maybe just a general question at this point now, Orlov to Boston, you know, Meyer to New Jersey. Who do you think is like the front runner in the East? And of course, then we've got Tampa Bay and Toronto. But like if you had to pick right now a team to come out of the East, and I feel like the team that comes out of the East might be, well, then you have Colorado on the other side. But anyways, just focusing on the East, who's your front runner right now? I guess it's tough. It's pretty close.
it's a gauntlet. Boston, Carolina, New Jersey, Toronto, and Tampa, and heck, I'll even throw the Rangers in there. Those are the 6 top teams in the league by raw points. Actually, Vegas, believe it or not, by points percentage has snuck in there. Like, and they had they've been pretty dismal for a bunch of the year. And Mark Stone has been injured for so much of it, and so is Jack Eichel. So you got to think Bruce Cassidy, you know, piggybacking off a Bruins take here, could be in the running for Jack Adams for getting this team right into the thick of things. I had no idea Vegas had crept all the way up, and also without Logan Thompson too. Like, there's a lot of adversity they faced.
Good for them.
Yeah, but going back to the East, you know what? Any of these teams, I could make an argument for a little less of an argument for Tampa and the Rangers than I could for the Leafs, Devils, Canes, and Bruins. But the Bruins have made it pretty clear they're the team to beat. They are basically lapping the next best team, which is New Jersey, in goal differential. They have scored 95 more goals than they've given up. New Jersey has scored 51 more goals than they've allowed. And Boston's home record is just insane. They have only lost twice in regulation at home this season. And so with home ice advantage in the playoffs, I mean, they're going to be against a really good team too. So it's going to be trickier than it was in the regular season. But if they can continue to just be as dominant as they've been, there's a lot of reason to believe. I guess the worry is that like maybe they haven't really faced adversity this year. They haven't been tested too hard, but I think you're nitpicking. This has just been an amazing team. Everyone's doing their job. And as you mentioned, they've just added Orlov is a great piece on the back end, and Garnet Hathaway, who's not nothing, as like a bottom 6 checker.
Yeah. By the way, while you said that, I was looking at Twitter and listening to you obviously very carefully. And a lot of people are just like saying that the Sharks got like nothing in this deal. Like they're not happy with the return for San Jose.
They got hosed.
So yeah, so I take it back. If I said like seems okay, I don't know. I thought a couple firsts is pretty good for a pending UFA, but I guess people were hoping for more.
It's only 1 first and a conditional first.
Oh yeah, I don't know what that means. I guess I have to read what the condition is. I'll do that after the show. But yeah, it was also on Boston, by the way, we should mention they also have Linus Ullmark. So not only have its great defense, strong offense, they also have probably the best goalie of the season so far. He's had now 5 straight games letting in 1 or 2 goals. He's a .938 save percentage. So no fantasy, and they have Swayman also. Like even if something happens to Ullmark, they still have a really good other goalie, or if they want to give Ullmark a rest at some point. So yeah, things are looking really good for Boston, which is very interesting. You're talking about how like Vegas, it's so impressive. Like don't forget, going into the season, a lot of people were worried about the Bruins. Like they're older, like they had some injuries going into the year. It was like, is this team going to be able to keep up? And they're the best team in the league.
They've had Marchand and McAvoy missing for a bunch. Taylor Hall has been like spiritually missing for a bunch of it too. So you can add that to the list of things they've worked through. Very impressive, and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be really sad that half the teams in the East are gone after the first round, and then I don't want to really poo-poo any team too badly. But, I'd rather see them than some of the West. I won't name the West teams, I guess, but I'd rather see those more of those East teams than some of the West teams that are likely to continue on.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So another defenseman on my mind, Bowen Byram, top power play yesterday over Devon Toews with Makar out. Though I'm seeing that Makar could be back Monday, so this will be a short-lived thing, but just interesting, right? Because it seemed like Devon Toews was like the next in line to get top power play. So all of a sudden, Byram got it. He did well. He got a power play assist on a Rantanen goal in the win over Calgary. Also, Byram had, I prepped for this like while the game was still going, and Byram already had 3 hits and 4 blocks. So he was like already like having this amazing game fantasy wise. Let me just check in here at the final box score. Colorado won 4-1. Byram ended the game with an assist, 4 blocks and 3 hits. Okay, so nothing more after I wrote it. So I could cut this whole thing out, but I won't because we said no edits. But yeah, I'm just really excited about Bowen Byram. He has 8 points in his last 9 games. Of course, Cale Makar is returning, so he's going to lose that top power play. But you just got to wonder, like, how, like, let's say news did come out, just a fun thought experiment, which wouldn't be fun for Colorado fans. But like, let's say it was announced that Makar's like out for the season, whatever. But it's like, cap relief, like he'll be back for the playoffs. They get to pull a Kucherov or something. That would probably be even good news for Avalanche fans. But obviously we want Cale Makar to be healthy. But like, assume Makar was out of the picture for a bit. Like, would Byram just become like a top 5 defenseman in fantasy? Like, it seems like with this opportunity, and while he's healthy, he's like similar to Makar, right?
That's his pedigree. It wouldn't be surprising. I don't think anyone would rule it out. If Makar was out and Byram was healthy, maybe he could keep this up for as long as that is. We've heard Makar could return as early as, I think, Monday. So we'll see if that happens. He is on my opponent's team in my next fantasy matchup, so I'm expecting Makar to be back just in time. But it's been great to see Byram, get some time to produce as the team's number 1 power play quarterback and getting a little more time at even strength too. He's been great. And not all of this, by the way, has come on the power play. Like, just 2 of these many points that you put the numbers, but only 2 have come on the power play for Byram. So he's actually just getting in on a lot of even strength action too.
Yeah, he's really good. We have a questioner, Jimmy Nitro's asking in the chat, like Byram or Girard. Byram to me. Like, I think Girard is like solid, but I think Byram's the one with the big offensive upside here.
Yeah, so long term, I like Byram. If Makar's back in the lineup, I might prefer Girard just because I think he's guaranteed a little more ice time. And as I mentioned, I think last week, I just want whichever Avalanche player is going to be on the ice the most often.
Okay, fair enough. I would still go Byram for what it's worth, but it could go either way. Also, I'll mention another goalie.
Me too. It's pretty silly to not go Byram. Yeah, the upside is big.
All right, so we're on the same page here. The rest of the show, let's see if we're on the same page for everybody. We had a couple disagreements, not even disagreements, because you basically convinced me, as you always do. But okay, let's another goalie talk now. We mentioned Ullmark in relation to Orlov. How about Georgiev in relation to Byram? What a smart pickup. This was, I think, Joe Sakic's last move as GM, the trade for Georgiev and sign him before he stepped down. What a smart trade, right? Like, Georgiev's locked in 3 years times 3.4 mil. Kind of like, Vejmelka's contract, which we're saying is like a pretty good value contract. Georgiev's having an amazing season. He has a 920 save percentage. Meanwhile, look at a team like Edmonton, who signed Jack Campbell to more money for more years, and he's absolutely imploding. Am I right to be this impressed? I just feel like going into the year, I was thinking Georgiev's nothing special. It's kind of a risky move, but I guess I don't know, good scouts, or is it good luck? I don't know. Very impressive. Nothing fancier. Anyone who drafted him, because you were able to get him pretty late in drafts relative to, his value now. And so you were smart to get him, as was, I think, Joe Sakic for trading for him in the first place.
I actually don't think Georgiev went that late in drafts. I think a lot of people were pretty high on him going into the season, and he went earlier than I was ready to take him, maybe somewhat foolishly going into the year. This has been the best play of Georgiev's career too. So I'm actually wondering, does that mean we should be impressed by Colorado? Or did they just get lucky? Because we've never seen Georgiev be this good, but I guess they saw something. They did their assessment, and I think whether Colorado got lucky or not, that might be the name of the game. Look at what the Avs have done with Georgiev. Look at what Toronto has done with Samsonov and Murray. And maybe these teams are showing that they're on to something, right? You have a great offense. You're a super well-rounded team. Try out some guys at goalie. Make some educated guesses. Don't invest heavily, like some other teams out west in Western Canada did. And just just roll the dice. And I guess like it's all about your pro scouting and how confident you are. And a lot of folks still aren't sure how accurately goalies can be projected, but this seems to be a pretty good path forward because you can make up for weak goaltending if the rest of your team is good. And then if you get a good one, you're golden. And if you don't, you still have some cash left over to try and patch up some other problems.
Yeah, and plus, like Colorado has, Annunen in the minors who looked good in his brief couple games, and Francouz, he's hurt now, but so I think Colorado made a good play there. I just wanted to throw that out there. Also, I'll mention another guy on Colorado that you may want to add that might be available to JT Compher. Super hot right now. He's been playing on the line with Rantanen and Evan Rodriguez. Mainly, obviously, you're interested in him getting exposure to Rantanen. Also, Compher's been on the top power play in the last couple games. Arturi Lehkonen bumped to the second power play. Lehkonen obviously still plays with McKinnon at even strength, so I'm definitely not saying to go crazy and get rid of Arturi Lehkonen. Both in good spots. So Brian, if you had to pick someone right now, or maybe it's dumb, maybe these if this player or that player. First of all, do you concur that also, by the way, Colorado plays 4 times next week? You should go grab JT Compher if you can get him, right? If he's on a line with Rantanen on the top power play, why not? What are you waiting for?
Yes, exactly. And if you want to know the answer of who I'd prefer between Compher and Lehkonen, I'll tell you, even though you didn't really ask. I'll take Compher in the short term and Lehkonen in the medium long term. I see him most likely to have good deployment, 2 or 3 weeks from now relative to Compher.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Eventually, we hope, if you're an Avs fan, that Landeskog comes back. And obviously, he would take that spot on the power play, and Lehkonen would probably still be playing in the top 6. So that makes sense. Let's go to the next defense I want to bring up, Aaron Ekblad, also on the top power play, just like JT Compher, just like Bowen Byram has been. But Ekblad has been doing nothing. He's ice cold right now, pointless in his last edit point because Frozen Tools is loading so slowly for me.
Oh, I thought it was just me. I thought my internet, but yeah, I've also, I don't know if you've noticed, I've had to solve.
Someone write to Eric and tell him I need this. I do this I can't do the show without Frozen Tools.
Server, please. Whatever you do.
So pointless in. I normally have this all up while I'm talking. I could bring this all up. Yeah, it's come on, loading. It's just Aaron Ekblad. Okay, I'm not asking for the whole history of Florida Panthers points here. Just give me Aaron Ekblad's page. Oh, I need to go somewhere. It's still loading. What do? I guess I have to find another source.
Go to Hockey Reference.
Okay,
that's a good spot for game logs. It's probably an extra couple clicks for you.
Hockey Reference.
Hockey-reference.com.
Ekblad. I have all my shortcuts to go right to the player page on all right, so then we have game log 2022-23. Oh, it loaded on Frozen Pools in this time. Okay, pointless in 6 games. Okay, I'm just gonna start this whole thing over again. Wait. The next defenseman I want to talk about, Brian, is Aaron Ekblad, who's also been getting top power play, just like JT Compher, just like Bowen Byram lately. But unlike those two guys, Ekblad is just doing nothing. Pointless in his last 6 games. He's taking a lot of shots, which makes me think you're going to say, don't worry about it. But man, if you're an Ekblad manager right now, you're probably worrying about it a little bit because this is a guy who we went into the year expecting him to be like last year. Ekblad had 57 points in 61 games. That's a 77-point pace, right? This year, he's on a 44-point pace. He's been a shell of what people were hoping to get when they drafted him. So I'm assuming you're going to say we should expect better moving forward, but I'm curious to know if you have any idea of why things have gone so badly for him so far, and especially lately.
Yeah, lately it's probably just been bad luck, but that also tells the story of why, on the whole, Ekblad season hasn't been as great as we'd hoped. 44-point pace for Ekblad, and it's back to the bad old days for him. He has 13 power play points, so that's not the problem for Ekblad. I mean, not completely. He's pacing for 5 fewer power play points over 82 games than he was last year, but that's not such a huge deal. That's not making the whole difference between 70-point Ekblad and 44-point Ekblad. The trouble has been at 5-on-5, where Ekblad is down 60 seconds a night. So that's one thing, a little less opportunity to put up points. But when he's on the ice, things are not going well for him. He's participated on just 27% of the goals scored while he's on the ice at 5-on-5, which was actually common for Ekblad in the earlier part of his career. But we've seen him be more involved over the past couple of years. So I'm not actually sure if that's unfortunately or bad variance, or he's just reverted back to the player he was. We'll have to like watch another season of Ekblad to figure that out. But for now, I'm considering it unlucky for him. He's also shooting just 3% this season versus shooting 7 or 8% the last 2 seasons. And his teammates with him on the ice are shooting just 8% this season compared to 9 or more over the last several seasons. So it's hard because we've seen 2 different Aaron Ekblads, right? And we were really ready to welcome the latest Aaron Ekblad, the one that we've seen for the last couple seasons, to be like, yes, this is him. This is that prospect that we once hoped would develop. And now his numbers have reverted back to the guy he was before that. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, is this bad luck now? Or was it good luck the last couple of years? I'm leaning towards that first explanation. This is just unfortunate variance for Ekblad in this moment, but it's something to keep an eye on. But Elon, I think under normal circumstances, I'd expect Ekblad to at least, and this is a low bar, to at least be pacing for 50 points and still have that 60-point upside when things are going better on the ice around him, which I expect is still going to happen. But like I said, I can't be 100% certain.
Yeah, my gut is that he'll bounce back. Yeah, like I think you're saying. And I think that the shots that he's been taking lately are like the one thing that keep me.
Oh, yeah. His shot rates are going, yeah, like per 60. Those are going great. He's actually increased those over recent years, too.
Yeah, so if you haven't passed your trade deadline yet in your league, like he's someone that I would be interested on seeing like what you can get him for. Like maybe you don't have to give too big of a package. It might be a good time to get him, especially like a keeper league. Anyways, also on Florida. So we got some news here. I'm going to go to GameDayTweets.com and go to the revamped news section where now I could just click on Florida Panthers to get my news on all the players here, because Barkov has been out. Bennett has been out. The latest tweet I'm seeing here from George Richards. I'm saying, here's what I got from Paul Maurice this afternoon. Sasha Barkov is out Tuesday at Tampa, but is likely to return Thursday versus the Preds. We'll know about Sam Bennett tomorrow. So I guess a short term maybe for Barkov, and then Bennett not as short term. We'll have to see. The lines without Barkov or Bennett at practice today, or I guess yesterday, were Tkachuk, Lundell, and Reinhart. So before, if you recall, it was Barkov with Lundell and Reinhart. So I guess Tkachuk is taking Barkov's spot, Lundell going to center. Then Anthony Duclair, who recently came back, has been playing on a line at practice with Verhaeghe and Luosterainen, which is not too exciting. But of course, if Bennett comes back or Barkov, that could be improved. So we're still waiting to see like who Duclair is actually going to play with once we have a fully healthy lineup. But a lot of people who drafted Anthony Duclair are like finally got their chance to get him in, and they're probably happy with the result, because in his first game versus Buffalo, in a 3-1 loss for Florida, but that one goal from Florida was assisted by Anthony Duclair, and he also had 4 shots. He didn't play too much power play, but it's hard to read too much into it just because it was his first game back. Who knows? Also 5 hits, which Duclair is normally not a big hitter. So it's like a very nice return for Duclair. And for people who have held him this whole time, hopefully a sign of things to come. And for people who have been free agency, maybe a sign that you should grab him. But at the same time, like I'm saying, like, these line mates at practice don't look that great. Not being on the top power play doesn't seem that great, but it's possible that like by next week he's playing with Barkov and you're really excited to have him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you covered it. I think the 5 hits thing, I feel like guys in the NHL, they like to, that's how they get back in the game. That's how they show they're healthy and ready and test themselves and show everyone around them like, yeah, okay, I'm good to go. So I don't know if those hits will keep up, but a nice spot to land in the lineup for Duclair with Reinhart and Lundell, and we'll see what happens when Barkov is back. In the meantime, though, let's give a shout out to Eetu Luosterainen, who's playing on what I'd consider the top line in Florida with Matthew Tkachuk and Carter Verhaeghe. Luosterainen's been on our radar a little bit through the season. He's a 24-year-old Finn. He was drafted 42nd overall by Carolina back in 2017. And he's got 9 points in his last 9 games, 17 shots, averaging 16 and a half minutes. And he's been a great stand-in for Barkov, who's been like in and out again. And I think Luosterainen is worth a look for every night that Barkov is out of the lineup. I think to me, he's worth a stream with, like I said, he's been a point per game player over his last 9, largely because he's been stepping in for Barkov. So he's someone that I have on my watch list, and I'm always ready to hit the add button if Florida's playing and Barkov isn't. So really nice to see someone there step up in Florida that we can see enter the top 6 and consider fantasy relevant while he's there. And also, by the way, shout out to permanent top 6er in Florida, or top line player, Carter Verhaeghe. 20 points in his last 17 on Fuego, 12 goals and 8 assists. And you might think, 12 goals in 17 games. Well, that's not sustainable. He's taking enough shots. He's taking like more than 4 shots per game on average in this stretch, which means that he's converted on about 16.5% of his chances, which is not unreasonable to keep up for Connor Verhaeghe. That's actually like barely above his career shooting percentage. So huge run for Carter Verhaeghe. And we'll see how. No. So huge run for Carter Verhaeghe.
Yeah, good job for Verhaeghe and anyone who held on to him when he was a bit cold at the start of the year. Brian, someone else who is super hot that we already talked about on the show, but I just want to circle back for a second. Tommy Novak just scored a goal for Nashville. So I don't know if that changes anything.
How many shots does he have tonight?
3 shots.
Oh,
and this goal was Novak assisted by Granlund and Duchesne.
Okay.
I don't know. I think I'm still kind of interested in him.
I'm gonna say yes, I am still interested too. My interest level is higher than it was an hour ago. How about that?
We got 16 minutes to go. Let's see how high we can get this interest level by the end of the game. By the way, speaking of this game, it's Nashville versus Arizona. Another defenseman I want to ask you about. Shane Gostisbehere, like Duclair, has come back from an injury. Gostisbehere obviously played a lot this season, really like raised his profile. What the heck is going on with Arizona not playing Gostisbehere on the top power play? Like, it's been Valimaki still on the top power play, which is sure great for Valimaki, exciting. Maybe someone you want to be watching in fantasy. We talked about him last week. He's been okay. I gets an assist every once in a while, but Gostisbehere is a free agent. Like, I assumed he was on the block and you'll want to trade him. And so isn't a good way to like raise someone's value is to give him good deployments so you could get lots of points and get teams interested in him? Like, I just don't get it. Like, I'm upset because I have him in a couple of leagues.
Yeah, I was going to say you should have qualified. You should have run that disclaimer before you but got deep into this.
But was I wrong to assume that Gostisbehere would take? He's been top power play all season, like with Chychrun there. They shared top power play, and now Chychrun is out, and they decide that Valimaki is good. Look, come on. We're playing a game here. I'm like doing my best. Okay, in my dynasty league, he's a rental, right? Because he's UFA at the end of the year. I traded some prospects to get, because I'm going on a run here. Like, give me a top power play defenseman. Get out of here, Arizona. You already did this to me with Vejmelka. He was supposed to be your volume start, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, now it's like Connor Ingram plays half the games. Now you're doing this to me with Gostisbehere. I hate the Coyotes. They suck.
Okay, well, here's the thing. They're not putting Gostisbehere on the top unit for the same reason that Chychrun's not in the lineup. Like, I think we know who these guys are. Andy in the chat is saying Ghost is a known quantity by now, and that's it. Like, I don't think Arizona gains anything from putting Gostisbehere on their top power play, whose value is not going to change day to day from being there. And in the meantime, like their organizational priority is likely to figure out, what do we have in Juuso Valimaki, who has been, well, like on and off again, right? Like barely helpful or productive. Interestingly, Valimaki is one of few players. He's played over half the team's penalty kill minutes tonight. And that doesn't seem to be anything he's ever really even nearly done before. So we'll see if that continues being a trend as well as they test him out in that role. Gostisbehere, by the way, he has a goal tonight on 4 shots. So he's not letting that power play quarterback job having escaped him, meaning that he's not getting any points. Oh, that was such a mangled way of saying at least he's producing without being on the top power play for Gostisbehere. But I think you're just going to have to be patient and see where he ends up. And I hope, do you have him on the team that I'm playing against next week?
Yeah. And I just dropped Sean Dursey.
I hope he runs into some visa issues on his way to his new home.
Well, it'll open up a streaming spot for streaming and goalies, I guess. Oh my God, Brian. Roman Josi just scored a power play goal from the top power play, assisted by Tommy Novak, who's on the top power play with him.
Interest level higher.
Pause the pod to grab Tommy Novak.
Well, here it is. But like, here's the thing. What's the shot count in this game? Because Nashville once again has okay, they're playing Arizona, although like Ingram and although Ingram and Vejmelka have both been pretty good, but how many shots does Nashville have tonight?
Looks like 26 shots, and they've scored
26 shots, and they've scored 5 goals. So there it is. They're shooting 20% again. This can't go on.
Brian, I brought this up a couple episodes ago, right? I'm a simple guy. Okay. I'm not like you. I'm not looking into how many shots the team is shooting. I like my porridge in the morning. I have my cereal at night, and give me a top line, top power play player on a hot streak. So I'm interested in Tommy Novak, regardless of how many shots Nashville's taking. So that's just me being basic, but that's how I play. And I'm losing a couple, but I'm doing okay in my other 2 leagues. So take that for what it's worth.
You are the reigning world's ultimate fantasy hockey champion. So there is something to be said for the way you interpret data.
I'll be honest. I've never looked at the team's shooting percentage, but maybe I should. Maybe I should look at it more often.
Maybe you should. I mean, you look at it every week with me when I talk about on ice shooting percentage.
I guess, yeah, but I was looking from the player's standpoint. But I guess, yeah, that is kind of like, wow, the players on the ice is more of a team thing. Yeah, true. Brian, we still have some more defensemen I wanted to talk to you about. And then I've still got some hot streaks and cold streaks. We'll see how many we can get to. But let's take a quick break first. You're listening to Keep It Karlsson. All right, we are back. And yeah, Brian, okay, so I talked about how Ekblad was cold. I talked about how Gostisbehere, I guess he's not cold, in a weird spot. How about another guy who's super cold, Moritz Seider, cold again. Like Ekblad, someone drafted super high in leagues. He disappointed us for a while. Then he started heating up, so we were able to say on the podcast, oh, congrats to anyone who bought low on Moritz Seider. Your patience has paid off, and now you're going to ride into the sunset and have an amazing fantasy asset. No, pointless in 5 games now. Like, it was scorching for a month before that. So is this again like Ekblad, just sort of like you're going to say maybe recently this is just a luck thing, or has something happened? Like Detroit, I should mention, plays 5 times next week. So if anyone has been frustrated and dropped Seider, I mean, next week would be the week to have him and get 5 games potentially. But yeah, curious to get your take on this cold streak.
I'm not too worried about it, although I was worried for part of it when Moritz Seider had a 6-game stretch. He wasn't pointless throughout the whole 6 games, but it was still very recent. He had a stretch where he had just 2 shots total combined in all the 6 games added together. So that's a lot of 0-shot games and 2 1-shot games. And then Seider took 3 shots against Tampa on Saturday night, which is refreshing and a bit of a relief to see. Seider had been blocking and hitting in the meantime for anybody who's still looking for some kind of value from him. So he was providing it, even though he wasn't shooting or scoring. And then, Elon, I looked to see what the team was doing and how their shooting and scoring was doing. Detroit has been scoring too. And Seider's been on the ice for 8 goals during this pointless drought, but he has not gotten a point on any of them. Normally, he would participate in like 3 or 4 of those goals. So I'm going to say no big deal for Seider, though I do hope he keeps shooting. I don't want to see him go another 6 games with only 2 shots on goal.
Yeah. By the way, Rasmussen got hurt in the last game. So going into this 5-game week, I would take a look. I mean, maybe like the Red Wings are going to fly off your shelves in your league and you won't have time to like wait and see. But I'll be curious to see the lines on Monday. Also, I think Lucas Raymond might be back, or the news is he's going to be back kind of soon. So you might have to rush to get Red Wings, but I'd obviously want to see what the lines are going to be. And obviously in 5 games in like 7 days, it's possible lines can change. So also don't get like too married. It's like if you see like Kubalik or whatever playing with Larkin, that could like change in like half a game. So be careful. And also I mentioned on Matchup Maximizer, just because they don't get too distracted by 5 games, right? Because like I said, this next week has 3 busy days, and Nashville and Detroit plays on all 3 of the busy days. So you're only getting 2 off-day games. So if you add a Detroit player, make sure it's not just to be on your bench for 3 games when you could get like a Vegas player who plays 4 times. But that's all covered in the other show, which, yeah, I know people are probably saying, look, guys, you drop a lot of shows on us. I don't have time to listen to all of this, but I don't know, figure it out. That's a you problem, not a me problem. Okay. All right. Okay. We're doing more defensemen here. Tyson Barrie, Ryan, man, what a draft steal to anyone who got. He fell so far in drafts after being so disappointing last year. Barrie now has 8 points in his last 6 games, 18 shots in that span. So that's like 3 shots per game on average. What happened? Like, I felt like it was so obvious that Barrie was kind of on his way out. We've already talked about how Bouchard is like basically nothing now. Like, he's totally fallen off as someone who people were super excited to draft this year. Bouchard was getting drafted ahead of Barrie. Big mistake. Barrie's amazing. Once again,
big mistake, except it wasn't a mistake at the time because we didn't know who was going to be on the top power play. And on that Oilers blue line, it really is top power play or bust. Barrie's career has been, well, he was on the top power play forever until that stretch in Edmonton, but top power play or bust for Barrie. His 5-on-5 scoring is actually as bad as it was last year. So he hasn't gotten better there. It's truly that playing in Edmonton with the man advantage is everything. Barrie has 28 power play points in 60 games, which means he's basically putting up a power play point every other night. on that top power play unit, which is shooting 22%, which normally I'd be like, oh, I don't know, but we waive all expectations for this unit. If they want to go on a heater for 82 games over the course of several years with Draisaitl and McDavid, then we're just going to say, yeah, they deserve it. Barry himself has 4 goals, which is a nice little cherry on top of his production. He is on a power play that has been crazy good. Barry has been a productive part of it. And that's the story.
Yeah. And Ryan, you're being charitable to us by saying like we didn't make a mistake because we didn't know at the time. I mean, I guess you could say that about all these fantasy decisions, right? Like when I guess it only counts as a mistake if it's like you knew that he was going to be good and you still didn't take him, or if we knew he was going to be on the top power play. I'm just curious to know, or am I being like a nitpick here and I should just move on? Of what am I even talking about?
I think you should just move on. Although I might have accidentally stopped my recording. Just like just as you said that, like as I finished what I said about Tyson Barrie.
So when you say you think you did.
I can't tell because the timer's still going. Oh wait, hang on. Okay, no, we're sorry. We're still rolling. We're good.
Oh, okay.
I just zoomed out all the way and it didn't look like it was moving anymore.
Oh, I see.
We're good.
So you still have to respond.
I'll say you're being a nudnik. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting, like because you say it a lot. We didn't make a mistake, but I almost feel like sometimes it's okay to say we made a mistake.
Oh, okay. I'm not trying to avoid like culpability here, Elon. Like, yeah, we did make a mistake, except like we projected Barrie being off the top power play. I think that's what I was going to say. And we were wrong about that. I think this doesn't absolve us of anything. We were all wrong about it though. Yeah. It wasn't like a hot take from us that Evan Bouchard was going to quarterback the top unit, that Tyson Barrie's days there were done. But I guess what happened was Edmonton, remember at the start of the season, was like, okay, we either use Tyson Barrie there and get our money's worth, or we ship him off. And I guess they chose the former of those options.
Yeah, I think it's like doing a podcast like this is just interesting overall, just because it's like we're kind of like trying to predict the future, and so we're going to be wrong sometimes. And yeah, it's like how much of it is like, I guess it just comes down to like I don't know, the process, I guess, at the end of the day, right? And if people like respect the process that we go through. But yeah, anyways, anyone who drafted Barrie, congratulations. You made a very smart choice. If you drafted Jack Campbell, not as smart, man. Oh my goodness. 4 goals against or more in each of his last 4 games. He was pulled versus Columbus on Saturday. Stuart Skinner led in 2 in relief and had 2 good games beforehand. The pendulum just keeps swinging back and forth between these two. I don't even know if I want to say like go and rush to grab Skinner now, but I will say that maybe it's time to drop Campbell. Like he's definitely not someone I'm interested in. Kind of like a Carter Hart at this point.
Yeah, well,
the team scores more goals, better chance to win.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't say like a Carter Hart, and it's like the pendulum is swinging, but like Campbell keeps like batting it back towards Stuart Skinner actively with the way he's playing. So I don't see why the Oilers would have any faith in Jack Campbell. And at this point, their playoff hopes and their Stanley Cup hopes are too fragile to be derailed by an unreliable goalie. So I think they give him some time. They let him get it. They let him try and get right. They play Skinner a bunch. They see if they can get 1 good starter to Campbell. Then maybe they can get 2. Maybe they can get 3, but he really hasn't accomplished that very often this year. So Stuart Skinner, if you were able to pick him up in that lull where Campbell did have the crease, then you should be happy. Like for me, if I'm running Edmonton, which I'm not clearly, and I never have been clearly.
You want to like mention that, like you want to say it, like you don't want the embarrassment of like admitting that you were running Edmonton at any point recently. Skinner would be my starter. He'd start at least 2 out of every 3. And that would be that. That's how I get my team ready for the playoffs. I mean, yeah, that definitely makes sense. I saw some tweets recently about how like Edmonton is saying that they're not planning on making a big move at the deadline. There's a lot of people upset about it. It's like another year wasted with McDavid and Draisaitl.
They wanted Karlsson. Like they spent hours. Like I think they spent days. Like I don't listen to Edmonton sports talk radio, but I'm going to guess just from like the chatter I saw on Twitter, like there were articles upon like there was at least a week, maybe 2 weeks worth of articles about first, should the Oilers be interested in Karlsson? And then how could they make it work? And then would San Jose do the deal? Like they went through the whole cycle and it never seemed to be like a terribly realistic thought. And now everyone's disappointed that it seems unlikely that the Oilers are going to make a Karlsson acquisition happen. But I'm sure it was fun for everyone.
Yeah, maybe they would have had some cap space to spare if they didn't sign Jack Campbell. But Yeah, lesson learned. Move on. Okay, so we'll move on. Also, the next defenseman I wanted to bring up, Mike Matheson, who was talked about on short shifts, but I want to bring him up again to get your take because he has 9 points in his last 9 games now. And in his game versus Ottawa on Saturday, Matheson had 6 shots and a goal. Montreal lost the game, but Matheson, another like really amazing stat line. Matheson is pacing for 52 points on the season now if you were to play all 82 games, which obviously is missed time. But yeah, 52-point pace, nothing to sneeze at. And it's like rising pretty quickly. I'm curious to get your take. Like, what kind of ceiling are we expecting from Matheson moving forward? And like both for this season where the Habs are kind of shorthanded, but also like I'm wondering even to start looking ahead. Like it seems like he'll also be the top power play quarterback next year. Like maybe Caden Gooley one day gets it or someone else that they draft. But like for now, he seems to be their guy. And like next year, once they have everyone healthy, like Doc, Caulfield, maybe Bedard is in the lineup. I don't know. Like things could like this is a guy who might be on the precipice of having some value. Maybe if you're in a keeper league and you're like already out of it, or like if you're in it, because he's also valuable now. I just feel like Matheson is someone I'd be very interested in trying to acquire right now.
Matheson was dropped in my cupful division before that like long all-star break that was a little longer or more uneven for the Habs. And I was able to grab Matheson somehow. Like, I think I just like stumbled upon him at the right time before anybody else realized, like, oh my gosh, he's a free agent. And I'm so happy I did. By the way, shout out to the Habs as a team. We thought when Cole Caulfield was done that they were done. They've scored 33 goals in their last 9 games. And the Habs have go back a bit further and they did struggle to score in like the immediate few games after Cole Caulfield was out. But since then, they've been doing great. The Habs have actually outscored their opponents 33-30 in their last 9 games and have won 5 of 9. The team is shooting 13%, which is a little high, but not as absurd as Nashville. And they're winning while their goalies have been putting up a combined .894 save percentage. The Habs are not getting caved in each night. And this is that in itself is kind of impressive. It's too bad for the tank, but the Habs are getting some miles out of the players that they do have. And they also have Denis Gurianov coming into the picture too. But first, for Matheson, I actually think he looks pretty comfortable right around where he is, which is, I think he said a 52-point pace. That to me just seems right. I'm looking at most of his numbers. They generally look like acceptable, no weird spikes, and nothing stands out to me. I think even without Caulfield, if Montreal can keep scoring goals, and probably won't keep scoring quite at the pace, like they're scoring almost 4 goals a game right now, that seems unsustainable. So maybe Matheson's production will dip a bit as the team's shooting percentage regresses as a whole. But I like what I'm seeing from him. So I'm assuming he's just going to be a hold the rest of the season.
Yeah, really good move, Brian, to pick him up there for sure. And yeah, Gurianov for Dodonov. I don't know. Probably not much fantasy relevance, but we'll see what Dodonov does on Dallas.
Yeah, so actually that was my first thought. And then I was like reading a few other people's thoughts and everyone was like, okay, let's see what Gurianov can do in Montreal. Oh. It was more about, yeah, I know. It was more about the reverse because we've given up on Gurianov, but he's always had these numbers that look like they should turn into something and haven't. And it's not everyone's going to be in Nichushkin, right? But Nichushkin's is another example. Someone who was in Dallas was unlocked elsewhere. I don't know that Gurianov's upside is as high as Nichushkin's, and he's ever shown quite as much skill or flair as Nichushkin has. But this is going to be an opportunity for Gurianov to prove himself, and I'm sure the Habs won't mind if he gives them a little more offense. So someone I'm at least keeping, maybe not on my watch list. Yeah, I'm going to put him on my watch list. I'm going to do it right now. Gurianov to the watch list.
But what about Dodonov? Not going on the watch list?
I don't think so. Like, where do you think he'll produce from in Dallas?
I mean, I think that Dallas has spots, right? Like their lines are the top line, and then like all the other lines are like well open. Like, Sagan is playing with Faxa and Marchment, so I don't know if a Dodonov could take the Faxa spot. Like so Ben, like, Delandria, and Wyatt Johnson. So Delandria could. I was like Delandria, Ty Delandria.
Yeah, I just look at Mason Marchment, right, as my sort of standard. And it's like, okay, he's someone who had some good numbers under the hood and should have done well, but hasn't. And so do I think Dodonov can do better than that from a place where Marchment is, or like no better than that in all likelihood? And no, but you know what, Elon? Just for you, I've added Dodonov to my watch list as well.
I'm pretty confident neither of these people will be on yours or anyone's roster in your division come like the playoffs.
That is the most likely scenario.
Okay, another defenseman. Oh yeah, I want to bring up Adam Boqvist, who's injured apparently. So he had another good week, by the way, this week. I think we talked about him last week, and I was just kind of bringing him up. I was like, he's on a bit of a run. He's on the top power play. He's now up to 6 points his last 6 games. He actually, if you look at Boqvist's season overall, he had 6 pointless games to start the year. And that's like with it was like 3 games and a big injury, then another 3 games. But then after that, 15 points in 21 games, which is like a 60-ish point pace. Obviously, very small sample size. Boqvist has been looking good. But he's injured now. And actually, Nick Blankenberg, friend of the show, Norm here's in the chat. So Norm's cousin Blankenberg was on the top power play today for Columbus. No points. But if Boqvist ends up being out for a while, then take a look at Blankenberg if you want a top power play QB. I don't know. Anyway, Brian, are you any more interested in Boqvist as the streak? It's kind of like a Novak situation. Like maybe as more points come, now you're like a little bit higher on him.
Yeah, a little bit higher than the last time we spoke about him. The last time we spoke about Boqvist, it was, he teases and then he disappears. And then I just, to prep for this episode and doing my research, as I always do, Boqvist, I was trying to think of an adjective that was better and it didn't come out. So it was just a useless sentence. But Boqvist hasn't gone more than 2 consecutive games without a point since late December. That's a long time. This opens my mind to the possibility that Adam Boqvist could maybe produce semi-regularly. Maybe he could be a 45-point player. Maybe there's upside for more. Maybe he is rounding into his own. Last time we talked about him, we also noted that though he's been in the league for what feels like a good deal of time already, Boqvist is still young enough, right? Like he turns 23 in August and he's a defenseman. So defensemen take longer to develop than forwards. And in a regular development curve, it's not abnormal to see a defenseman round into form and as they approach their mid-20s. We see the elite guys do it sooner, but they're elite. And I'm not suggesting Boqvist is there. So maybe there is something to this.
Okay, yeah. So if he's available in your league, now you can add Adam Boqvist and put him in your IR. You don't even have to use a spot on him right now, and you can grab someone else, and then you have Boqvist for when he comes back. So we'll see. And in the meantime, maybe grab Blankenberg, depending on who's available in your league. Brian, hey, we got some information here. I'm seeing Shams retweeted on Game Day News NHL the conditions. So it's actually, so the Devils get the 1 first-round pick for sure, and the 2nd first-round pick that's conditional is only if the Devils make the Eastern Conference Finals in this or next year, and Meyer plays enough of the games. Otherwise, it's a 2nd. So an even worse trade for San Jose once we find out the condition, because they need to cheer for the Devils to do well, basically.
Yeah, I'm seeing, I'm sort of following on Twitter, and everyone is kind of realizing the Devils gave up nothing real, nothing of terribly real value. Like a late first rounder, anything outside the top 10, then you see when you look at the value of first round picks, of course it's really high at the start. And then it goes down a bit. It's like tiers, right? You've got your top group, and you've got your top 10, and maybe your top 15, top 20, but it really dips as you get to the end of the first round. It's pretty much on par with a 2nd round pick, or even better than a 3rd round pick, but still not substantially better. So they're not worth a whole lot, those first round picks from teams that are going to finish in the top 5 of the league. But this is how it always happens, right? I remember being underwhelmed by the Sens return for Erik Karlsson, and Josh Norris turned into a heck of a player. And I think that largely saved the deal. And someone else, I don't know if it was in the chat or where I saw it.
Well, they got Stützle also in that trade, right? They got that pick. Pretty sure the Karlsson deal, they got Norris and they got the pick that turned into Stützle. You have to look that up now. But anyways, it turned out in hindsight to be a very good trade.
Yeah, no, I feel like I should know that off the top of my head too. But there was also the Duchesne deal where the Sens, it was a similar deal, right? Yes, that is what happened, because I remember when the Sens traded Duchesne, they traded a pick that ended up being Bo Byram. And it was we didn't know we'd be this bad. We thought we were improving our team.
Well, exactly. That's why the Sharks,
But I don't see that happening with the Devils here. That
would be shocking.
That would be so shocking. And it wasn't so shocking when it happened to Ottawa and then San Jose. So yeah, bad. But also, Elon, isn't this always the way it is? When does a star player get traded at the deadline for a really meaningful return?
I don't know, Erik Karlsson. I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
It's always just a bunch of it's always a bunch of futures that may or may not turn out to anything.
Yeah, and to be fair, San Jose was going to lose him for nothing. So I guess we'd have to know what the other offers were. But anyways, okay, I had so much to get to, so I don't know why I went back here again. But I'm getting new information. We got to share it, of course. It's Shams' fault for retweeting it. Okay, Brian, I still want to get to some more defensemen and some out trees and some hot streaks and cold streaks, all in the final stretch of the show. So we'll see what we can do here. We'll talk to you all soon. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. Okay, we are back, Brian. So the other defenseman that I wanted to talk to you about are, I hate this. I have to bring up Cam Fowler's hot again. Okay. And I know, like, he has had an assist in the 3-2 win over Carolina yesterday, which brought Fowler to 8 points in his last 6 games. Are we falling for this again? Like he's been running super hot. Then I add him. Then he goes cold. Then I drop him. Then he goes hot again. It's very like this is why I won the couple last year, and I'm doing so badly this year. I'm just off. My timing is off. And like with Cam Fowler specifically, I've added him 2 times off of hot streaks, and then he's done nothing for me.
Yeah, he's like he's like my version of Mikael Granlund, who, you know, I add when he does nothing, or Dawson Mercer even. Like I just keep getting him at the wrong times, and that happens with a streaky player like Cam Fowler. And I think what we're seeing happen is he's hot now, he'll go cold, then he'll get hot again, and you're basically playing the lottery anytime you add Cam Fowler. It could be worth a shot depending on your circumstance, but absolutely nothing is ever guaranteed. And you shouldn't kick yourself for dropping him either, because he's so useless when he's not on one of these hot runs.
Yeah, and also, by the way, Klingberg scored in that game versus Carolina after missing a couple games. So Klingberg actually has 8 points in his last 8 games, so really upping that trade stock. Unlike Gostisbehere, who I don't know. Anyways, I don't know. I have to go back to that. But yeah, Klingberg looking like maybe now Anaheim will be able to get something for him at the deadline because he's getting some points now. So good for him. By the way, I keep talking about this game against Carolina. Like, let me repeat that. Anaheim beat Carolina. And it wasn't because they outplayed Carolina. It's because John Gibson stopped 50 of 52 in the win. Just an insane performance from John Gibson. And like, good for him, right? Like, he's gone through such a ringer. He also stopped 41 of 43 in the previous game. So Gibson just doing the best he can to help Anaheim potentially lose out on Bedard. But yeah, like some big games, like, he's like super risky to roster because of all those shots against, and he sometimes gets blown up, but sometimes you can get a lot of saves out of this guy. In these last couple of games have probably been week winning for the people for the people who had him for those games.
Huge production in the cupful, especially where volume is prided upon and wins are not as important. But Gibson has seen like a ton of volume. The last time Gibson faced the last time Gibson faced fewer than 39 shots on goal, and played a full game was against Dallas on January 4th. So it's now basically been 2 months since Gibson has seen a semi-reasonable workload. Since then, Gibson is averaging like 45 shots against per start, which is insane. And what's cool is that he's been a 903 goalie in that stretch, which is not far off the league average of 906 right now. And in his February games, John Gibson has had a 915 save percentage in 7 outings. So he's doing great with the volume he's seeing. I feel bad for him still, like we talked about him last time, right? I mean, I don't feel so bad for him. He's got it pretty good, but like he goes in every night, knowing he's going to get shelled. Maybe that's fun for him. It's a fun little challenge. Like there's no stakes or pressure. Maybe he's got it pretty good. And he lives in Anaheim. That's got to be a pretty decent place to be. So
I'm sure he'd like a chance to go for a cup at some point.
Well, he's going to have to wait till the clock runs out a little longer on his contract. Right? He's got a kind of a big one for another little while. 4 more years at $6.4 million.
Like the thing is, Anaheim actually has like a really good pipeline of prospects coming in, like for defensemen specifically. They have Minchukov and Zellweger, who I know people are into. They also have added point. What's the name of the guy who was the top power play guy before he got injured?
Jamie Drysdale.
Yeah, they also have Jamie Drysdale, of course, who's now injured. So like theoretically, we could have 3 like really awesome defensemen coming in starting next year to start helping him. So maybe he doesn't have to wait his whole contract for Anaheim to be good, because I think that would make a big difference. But right now, yeah, it's pretty bleak. Okay, Brian. Okay, one more defenseman, Brian. What happened to Jake Sanderson? He came back for the Sens, and Sanderson had 2 straight no points and no shot games. Like he was on this nice run, then he got hurt. A lot of people stashed him. We're excited for him to come back and kind of continue this run. And not only did he not get points, nothing, like no shots. So is it time to do you just drop him now? If you held him, in your IR, you were excited for him to come back, and now he did nothing. This is like not the Duclair experience so far, right? It's been nothing. But maybe, it could be the kind of thing where maybe he's just, needed a couple games to shake off the rust, and then you'll drop him, and then the next game he'll be great again. So I'm curious, if you had him, would you give him another game or two, or would you tell him to hit the road?
Yeah, this was just one of the possible outcomes for Jake Sanderson. I would tell him to hit the road, although he does play Monday and Tuesday against Detroit. So maybe hold on to him for 2 games if he's already on your roster, or try him out. Like, Jake Sanderson is not a production machine in basically any format, but I still think the upside and potential for him to do that is there. So you could still take a shot on him at any given moment. I find him similar, Elon, to like Owen Power through this year, where like you're adding a guy on a team that has the capacity to score goals, but doesn't always, do a whole lot on the score sheet, but could if everything works out for him. And he plays defense, which is a reason, depending on how thin your options are. But that's it. That's it for Jake Sanderson. It's not like a huge bummer because expectations weren't that high that he was going to come out of this injury and produce.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Also, just before, you were about to continue, but just going back to Anaheim, did you mention Ryan Strome in his opportunity with Henrique out?
I did not mention it. Yeah, Henrique is out long-term. Strome has been on the top power play and the even strength line with Trevor Zegras and actually Jacob Silfverberg, who I was like yesterday when I was recording Matchup Maximizer, I was kind of going through the teams with good schedules and sorting by percent rostered. And then I saw that Silfverberg is on this line, and I was like looking to mention him. And Yahoo, he wasn't even on the first page on Yahoo for Anaheim sorting by percent rostered, because Silfverberg is 0% rostered. Like, I didn't believe he's fallen far. So that he might be the most valuable 0% rostered player for next week in fantasy, Jacob Silfverberg. But yeah, anyways, I don't know how long he's going to last there. But yeah, Strome.
I'd rather Ryan Strome.
I'd rather Ryan Strome's on the top power play.
Yeah, top power play, like big opportunity. We've seen Strome produce when he plays with like top end producers in a top end role, and he hasn't had that opportunity really in Anaheim yet. So this is a chance. I'm not expecting it to be like a locked in success, but he already had 2 assists in his first game playing extra responsibilities because of Henrique's injury. I think Henrique being out is good news for Ryan Strome.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely add him to the watch list at least. And Anaheim has 3 off day games next week, IIRC. So that could be pretty good. If you have a player that's playing Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday only, and he'll be on your bench all 3 of those games, you'd probably prefer Ryan Strome. You'd probably prefer anybody. Also in Ottawa, though, going back there, Kevin Weeks tweeted, who's been pretty reliable, right? He seems like a good source. We don't generally talk about injury rumors, or like trade rumors, I should say. We don't generally talk about trade rumors, but I'll just mention this Kevin Weeks tweet saying, keep an eye on Cam Talbot, who is drawing interest in the market as a capable, well-conditioned, trusted veteran. Brian, you were talking about some teams that might be interested in Vejmelka. Maybe like, obviously the price for Talbot would be a lot less since he's a pending UFA and he's older and not as good. Anyways, if the Sens trade Cam Talbot, that would be pretty huge for Sogard, right? Because Forsberg is gone for a long time with his injury. So Matt Sogard, who's been pretty good since coming up, he just won that game against Montreal. Might be time to jump on Matt Sogard, especially if you're already in the playoffs. You don't have to worry about like next week, because I think Talbot's coming back and might get a game or 2. But Ottawa, like you said, plays Monday, Tuesdays. You could get Sogard and get one of those games. Remember last year, Anton Forsberg was like a fantasy playoff MVP. He came in, played all the games for Ottawa, and was insane. Wouldn't it be fun if this year Mad Sogard takes the mantle and does the exact same thing? I think it's possible.
That would be fun, and it is possible. Sogard has done reasonably well in his starts so far for Ottawa, and you're right, he is just a trade, and what feels like a likely trade away. I think probably the biggest issue with the Sens trading Talbot is that no team would be that interested in him given what he's done this season. Like, it hasn't been that exciting, and maybe Ottawa is going to ask for too much. But Sogard has started 4 times. 3 of those starts have been quality. He has a .919 save percentage. He's given up 11 goals over 4 outings in a bit. He's won 3 of his 4 decisions, and the other one was an OT loss. So this is a guy who would be valuable if you are desperate for goalies down the stretch, especially if volume is more of a priority over wins, because we're still not sure. It depends on how Ottawa behaves at the deadline. But you're not looking at a lot of locked in wins here from the Sens goaltender. But if Talbot goes, then Sogard's value definitely goes up.
Right. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I should mention, Andy is saying in the chat here. Yeah. Sorry, I missed it. Talbot already has returned and has played a game. He lost to Carolina. He led in 3 goals on 29 shots. But this is against Carolina.
We all lose to Carolina.
Yeah, we all lose. Yeah. So I guess now, Brian, I wanted to get into the outros. Oh, by the way, you said that no one might want like Talbot. How about this? Here's a pretty good deal. I think we talked about LA. They need like Ottawa has, I think, enough cap space to take Jonathan Quick for the rest of this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. So how about just Ottawa takes Quick, sends Talbot, and then also LA sends Ottawa like a second round pick. That seems like a pretty fair deal for both sides, right?
Yeah, I
I
think
think Talbot's better than Quick.
That's a pretty good deal for LA. They should be sending the second just to get rid of Quick.
Well, so but
and
Ottawa,
not
whatever.
also receive a goalie.
Well, but Quick is going to be a UFA at the end of the year, so it's not so desperate to get rid of him. But yeah, so fine, send a second and a third there. We're negotiating here. That's how you'd make a trade, I'd assume, in the NHL. Okay, Brian, I want to do some outros. We have 4 goalies who have come off the IR recently or will soon. So the will soon is Thatcher Demko, who we keep seeing tweets that he's going to be back soon. In the meantime, Arturs Silovs has had 3 straight games, letting in only 2 goals for the Canucks. So he seems to be beating out Colin Delia for the backup job. And so good for him, but maybe, there's not too much to say about him because Thatcher Demko could be back. I don't know if we're so excited about Demko because Vancouver hasn't been very good this year, but I'm sure if you have him and you've had him in your IR this whole time, you're excited to, get something out of him. Also on Vancouver, I'll mention that they traded for Vitaly Kravtsov. They gave a guy named Lockwood. They're getting Kravtsov, who's a first-round pick who hasn't really panned out on the Rangers. I guess you mentioned, Brian, that you're interested in Gurianov going to Montreal. Is it similar for you with Kravtsov going to Vancouver, or are you more like confident that Kravtsov is just going to continue to be nothing?
No, I would say I don't know if I'm more confident. I'm so low on both of Gurianov and Kravtsov, right? I don't want to give the impression that I was really high on Gurianov. Just an interesting, like he's someone who could use a change of scenery. Kravtsov, definitely. It's crazy how little he commanded on the market, which isn't a great sign for me, but it will be nice to see. I mean, Beauvillier, of course, he's playing with Pettersson, but he got a fresh start in Vancouver and it's gone pretty decently for him. So we'll see if Kravtsov can capitalize with an opportunity here too. It'll be nice to at least see the guy in action, and I assume in decent deployment opportunities, which just has not happened as a Ranger. So just as like a hockey fan and watcher, I am excited to hopefully get to know a little bit more about the player Kravtsov is.
Yeah, if you look at the Canucks lines in their last game, Kuzmenko, Pettersson, Beauvillier, that probably holds. Garland, Miller, Besser, let's say that holds. So maybe like Kravtsov could make a bottom 6 spot, like instead of like a Sheldon Dries or I don't know, whatever. So I don't know if he's going to be like interesting for fantasy, but yeah, I'm curious to see if he can get some games in and do something. Okay, so yeah, Demko's going to be back. Tristan Jarry is back. He's been good, though. Really, the big story out of Pittsburgh lately is definitely Evgeny Malkin. Holy cow! And by the way, Pittsburgh just destroyed Tampa 7-3 today. Brian Elliott
was in net. Yeah,
and he led in all 7 goals. Like Vasilevsky just had this insane game where he was like 50 saves or something. Like Vasilevsky stood on his head, stole a win for Tampa. So they were like, I don't care, Elliott. Like this is your job to let Vasilevsky rest. So you just stay there. And yeah, and Evgeny Malkin, another game with a goal and an assist. He's been like really hot lately. So I think we talked about him recently. So we don't need to dive into Malkin. And yeah, obviously Tristan Jarry looking good. There was actually DeSmith in today and he didn't even do that well, but he didn't need to because Pittsburgh scored 7 goals. Then we have on Vegas, Aiden Hill is apparently going to be back soon. Laurent Brossoit had a big game yesterday for the Golden Knights. So I think we're looking at an open competition. And if I were to guess right now, this is just obviously a gut feeling. I think I'd take Brossoit as the goalie on Vegas that I'd want over Aiden Hill. So that I'm just throwing that out there as a goalie situation to watch.
Do you want to add like reasons, like supporting evidence, or like
I guess just Brossoit's like, he obviously started the year injured, then had to go to the minors because Vegas was doing fine with Hill and Thompson, and Brossoit did fine in the minors. He got called up and now he's like been playing well. Like you said, Vegas is winning games lately. I just don't see why. Like Brossoit was the guy who was supposed to be the backup going into the year, right? It was supposed to be Leonard and Brossoit. They only traded for Hill because Brossoit was injured. So yeah, that's just my feeling. But with goalies, it's like I could say anything. Like who knows at the end of the day?
Who knows? Yeah, I'm not sure either of these guys is going to be like the starter the rest of the way. Like you said, open competition. But I think it's a competition that neither of them might win. They both have played really well in 2 of their last 3 starts. So Vegas has got to be pretty happy about that. And I'm curious to see how they'll split the workload, if they will try and lean towards one guy more than the other and wait until they falter. But Elon, I will go with you just in the sense that Brossoit is the less known entity, maybe he can get on a run and, not end up being like terribly inconsistent. Like Adin Hill's had enough kicks at the can here and has never really been able to do well enough for long enough to stick. But I will say in his last 6 appearances, he has a 919 save percentage and a 4-1 record.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about Mad Sugard and saying basically the same thing, the same numbers for him, and saying, yeah, he could be interesting. So Adin Hill doing surprisingly well, let's say. In Brossois, we don't know exactly what to expect. So I expect to see some back and forth still until one goalie messes up.
Yeah, you're probably right. Like, it's probably neither of them are going to get the volume. Sogard, I'm interested in because if Talbot's traded, it's just like it's him and Mandalese.
Yes.
So, then I guess speaking of Vegas, they did make a trade. They have now acquired. Sorry, edit.
Ivan Barbashev.
Yeah, They've now acquired Ivan Barbashev. And you know what? Barbashev hasn't been like too special in St. Louis, but I see some openings here. Like specifically, I'm wondering where Barbashev's going to slot in because it's been Eichel, Marchessault, and Cotter on the top line. And as like decent as Cotter has been, I don't think he's supposed to be a top liner on Vegas. So I'm definitely going to be watching those lines. And if Barbashev ends up slotting in with Eichel and Marchessault, this could be another Beauvillier situation of a guy that just like right away goes to his new team, gets a top line spot, and maybe gets going. So add him to your watch list. And yeah, you're just going to have to watch game day lines and see how things shake out.
I'm going to throw another Vegas name out there to you to watch, and that's Michael Amadio. We're looking at him again. He was playing on the second line with William Karlsson and Riley Smith, but also on the top power play unit in Vegas's last game. And it's not enough to be a run, but he has a goal and an assist, 2 points in his last 2 games and 5 shots on goal. One of those points came on the power play. And just to repeat, he is on the top unit. So Vegas with a good schedule. And I'm actually frustrated. Like I was looking at Amadio as like maybe a deep ad in one of my leagues. And now that Barbashev's in the picture, I actually don't know what that does to the lines. Like, should I be interested? So I'm going to have to wait for a Vegas practice, I guess, tomorrow morning to be able to react to this. But I think it's not a bad idea to keep an eye on what the Vegas lines are because there might be some value to be found.
Okay. And then I'll mention that Chris Driedger is healthy for Seattle. They waived him. He cleared waivers. This is just what happened with Brossois, right? I think Brossois could have been claimed by another team. No one wanted him. Driedger still has another 3.5 year on his contract. Remember, he had that good year with Florida, and then he was UFA, and Seattle signed him as like I think their first goalie, right? But then they realized that Grubauer was available, and so they signed him. So Driedger became the backup. Both of them stunk last year. That's the story. Driedger is now here. He's healthy, but of course now Seattle already has a backup in Martin Jones. But Martin Jones is a UFA, and also he's been pretty weak lately. Though I think today, Grubauer, well, it was against Toronto. Toronto really just like went to town on Seattle. They won 5-1. Grubauer started, got pulled. Martin Jones came in and actually did okay. Anyways, my guess is Driedger stays in the minors for the rest of the year unless there's an injury. Now that he's cleared waivers, for next year he could be good. So I don't even know like if there's much to say, fantasy wise here, but just wanted to point it out that Driedger is back and maybe next year he'll be someone worth looking at. Yeah,
I think that's probably the extent of what there is to say, which seems like there's like it's the extent of what there is to say about anyone in Seattle, right? I was trying to look at the forwards for the upcoming week. They have a couple good off nights, like a decent schedule for the Kraken, and they're such a streaky team. And I'm just trying to see like, do I want any of them? This happens every time Seattle has a good schedule, and I've settled on that McCann, Eberle, and Beniers. Like I'll take one of those guys. And then everybody else is super dicey. Gourde is on a decent line and joining those 3 on the top power play unit. But like such a streaky team. Patty, who I think at the end of every episode, our first ever patron, mentioned that like I think she was talking about the team with the players who've been added and dropped the most times. I think she was mentioning Nashville as potential because of like Granlund and Tommy Novak and Juuso Parssinen. And I threw out
Johansson,
yeah. And I threw out Seattle and Philly too. It's just these teams where like you never know where the offense is going to come from, and you're just like constantly buying like Fowler, like constantly buying lotto tickets and seeing if you hit gold.
Yeah, actually, the Short Shifts guys brought up Vince Dunn on last week's show. I think this was the show that was Jeremy and Shams's first show together. Good job for both of them, by the way. Really exciting to see 2 new podcast hosts now doing a show, even like with all of us vets sitting on the bench and letting the rookies go. And they were amazing. So now we've got more vets on the Keeping Karlsson roster. Anyways, they brought up Vince Dunn. Actually, now I'm thinking maybe Vince Dunn was on the show with Lewis. But anyways, Dunn was cold. Since then, he had like, I think a 2-goal game. And now today, the Seattle, like I said, lost 5-1, but Dunn did score the 1 goal for Seattle. So he's good again. So definitely, Brian, of the guys you mentioned, I'm assuming you're also going to include Vince Dunn as someone that you'd be happy to have. And you were just talking about forwards.
Yeah, ish. I think we had a question also on our server. Somebody was asking, they asked Matheson or Vince Dunn for the rest of the season. And for me, that was an easy Mike Matheson. Like Dunn, like when he's hot, like holy cow, is he hot? But just like the rest of the Kraken, like he's either helping you a lot or doing absolutely nothing. And I find that frustrating.
I think it'll probably be close, to be honest. Like I don't.
Yeah. It could very well be close. Yeah. But okay, well, here's like a philosophical question. Do you want the guy giving like, whose average is pretty evenly? I'm not saying this is going to be the case between the two, but based on their patterns, it would be my hunch. Matheson, do you want the guy whose production is spread pretty evenly through the rest of like the fantasy season? Or do you want the guy who like can absolutely win you a week because like they bust out huge for 1 week or like 1 week at a time and then go quiet and do nothing for you other weeks?
I think the second one. I think that like if you trust in your team and you think your team is good enough to, make up for the slow weeks, I'll take the guy who could win me a week, I think. Because what if I needed to win that week?
Well, maybe the average guy every week keeps you in matchups that you wouldn't otherwise
tough to
be
say.
in.
I need to look at each week and see what I need that week, I guess. Depends how close. But yeah, the thing is, I don't know if it's going to be like that. Like maybe I still worry that Montreal is like playing over their head a bit. Like, why are they scoring so many goals when all these guys are injured? So I wonder, like, I think that Seattle maybe should be more offensive, but who knows? Anyways, Brian, man, I still have a whole section of hot and cold streak. The good thing is we have the short shifts guys, right? And so they're going to do 2 shows next week, and they always have a streak section. So maybe we can throw some of them to short shifts. So Brian, how about I'm just going to name all the guys that I had on my list, and then you could throw out any analysis you kind of wanted to throw out here. If you did any really good research here that you want to bring up, like Seth Jarvis is on a super hot streak in Carolina. I wonder if now this is the time where it's finally like for real, kind of like Boakfist. I was saying, he's kind of let us down in the past, but maybe now's the time, like similar age, that he's ready to really break out. Ryan Hartman is hot on Minnesota. Anyone who grabbed him when he got this new run on the top line is obviously very happy. Braden Point, I guess wanted to just bring him up because he's doing so well lately. Like Point has been insane lately. Ryan O'Reilly, that line with O'Reilly, Marner, and Tavares has been great on Toronto. Today, though, no points for O'Reilly in Toronto's 5 goals. But he was like +2. So he was on the ice. Probably it's just a matter of happenstance that he didn't happen to get an assist on one of those goals. Kuznetsov was cold for Washington, but he's had a couple good games lately. Washington does only play 2 games next week. So I was just curious to get your current take on Kuznetsov and whether I actually dropped him in the league that we're going into a matchup against each other. I ended up adding Comfer and dropped in Kuznetsov because I wanted the 4 games over the 2 games. Of course, then I felt a little bad about it when Kuznetsov had these 2 good games. Also on Washington, Darcy Kemper, super cold all of a sudden. He's been letting in more goals than we'd like to see. Speaking of cold goalies, Igor Shesterkin, very cold lately. 5 goals against versus Washington on Saturday. Shesterkin is down to a .909 save percentage on the season, which is very surprising. Like he was drafted like as the top goalie in a lot of leagues, or at least second behind Vasilevsky. If we were to do Schmore goalies board, like just predicting for next year, I wonder if Shesterkin is still a tier 1 goalie, or now it just has to be back to how it should have been. Vasilevsky, and that's it, because he's the only one we could for sure rely on to not go cold. Anyway, those are the guys. Oh, Braden Shen's also cold. So I don't know, maybe pick 1 or 2, but we really got to get out of here.
Okay. I'm going to go in the same order you said them. Seth Jarvis, 8 consecutive games with 3 or more shots, 5 goals on 19 shots. So scoring on 25% of his attempts. It's probably not going to keep going that way, but it is, like you said, Elon, maybe this is the moment, and Carolina does have a good schedule this week. Ryan Hartman is a must have, right? Whatever didn't click for him earlier this year is clicking now. 6 points and 17 shots in his last 5 games. And today against Columbus, Hartman's line, I'll call it his line, even though he's the least impressive person on it. They won the shot battle 17-10 against Columbus and had 32 of 49 shot attempts that took place while they were on the ice. So that's good. That's high pace also. I'll
also mention in that game, we should say that it was Kirill Kaprizov that scored a hat trick, scored all 3 goals in that game, all in the 3rd period and overtime to take them back. So it was a very impressive game. And yeah, Hartman assisted on one of those goals.
Okay, Braden Point, he is approaching like career high numbers, which his previous career high, 95-point pace, came with a 21.5 shooting percentage, which was unsustainable because he shot 40% on the power play. This season, guess what? Braden Point is currently shooting 20%. It's a little, the unsustainability is more spread between 5-on-5, 19%, which is a few percentage points higher than usual, and 26% shooting on the power play. So we'll see how far he can take this. It's not as absurd this time, though, as it was the last time. Evgeny Kuznetsov, he's only shot 6% at 5-on-5 this year, which is about half of where his usual percentage floor is. He's up with Ovechkin. He's still the top power play unit. I think he is probably worth holding the rest of the way, even through a bad schedule. It's been an unfortunate season for him, but I see reason to believe that he deserves better than he's gotten. Kemper, yeah, I mean, they started him on the second half of the back-to-back. It didn't go well. He was frustrated. That's too bad. Hopefully he gets right. And Igor Shesterkin, yeah, old reliable here, not so reliable, or I should say young reliable. This season, he's played above average for most of it. But he's only had one real standout sequence, and most of that came in December. In the month of December, he had a 927 save percentage over 11 games. This so far in February, though, Shesterkin, and I'm only slicing these by splits, which are given by month. You can probably do it in a more meaningful way another way, but just as a basic look, in 6 February games, Shesterkin has an 852 save percentage. I get the sense this has never happened to him before. So I'm curious to see how he finds his way out of it, because people like who've never struggled have a hard way finding their way out of a struggle once they get into one. So hopefully this is short-lived, and good thing for Shesterkin that the Rangers are loading up in the meantime, doing what they can to make their team more competitive elsewhere. I assume he'll find his game, but yeah, very frustrating as a goalie who we thought we could rely on, but suddenly cannot. And Elon, there is my full rundown on, I think, all the players you mentioned, or the good deal of them.
All right, well, up to the short shifts guys to come up with new content then. I guess we'll have to see what happens Monday, Tuesday. That was great, Brian. This was so much fun. Thanks to everyone who joined us in the chat. I hope you liked the show. Thanks for everyone who listened to the episode. Anyone who's listening to Keeping Karlsson episodes at the end of February, you are true fantasy fans, because our numbers go down around this point. All the, people who are super stoked at the beginning of the year, then quickly fall off, kind of like people who make New Year's resolutions to lose weight, and then all of a sudden the gym memberships start going down as the year goes on and the room gets emptier. That's kind of how it is for Fantasy Hockey Podcast. So we really appreciate those of you who are still with us, fighting to get into your championships. And I'm even more thankful to people who are like losing and are already out of it and are still listening, because they just enjoy our content. So thank you very much. If you want to help us out, we have a few ways, starting from subscribing to the podcast. That's the easiest thing you could do. A little bit harder is you could give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast. That definitely helps. If you really want to go above and beyond to become a patron of Keeping Karlsson, we've got a great community going over on Discord and a bunch of other perks. So check it out at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. But with that, Brian, I'm ready to cue that outro music. So now it's playing. And why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. Thanks for clarifying that the music is playing. I appreciate it. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters, Adam, Aaron, Tyler, Ivan, Andrea, Tom, Ryan, Derek, David, Rob, Ricard, and of course, Patty. Thank you to Kevin Hebert and our team of co-commissions for keeping the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League going smooth. We've just we're replacing managers who've been like, this is enough for me. I can't keep up with my team. That's cool. We replace you. We try and keep everybody active. So competition is fair from start to finish in the league. So thank you to Kevin and all our co-commissioners who are keeping an eye on that. kkupfl.com for more info on the league. Thank you, Shams and Elon, for all the great stuff at GameDayTweets.com, including the newest news feature. Holy cow. Mind-blowing stuff. Very exciting. And I think there's even more developments in the offing. Thanks to our team of Short Shifts hosts, Lewis, Jeremy, and Champs. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say this week. Logo art by BrendanWeave.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dobber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoldies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo!
Great job, as always, Brian. Man, if anyone's listening at 1.5 speed, there's no way they were able to follow all that. That's okay. It's the credits. Who's listening at this point? Thanks again, everyone. Looking forward to talking to you at the next Mega Show next week. And in the meantime, Brian, what should we do as we watch this exciting trade deadline develop?
Please make sure you're doing all you can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone.
Awesome. Great job. Thanks again, everyone. See ya.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. See you. Bye, Brian.
Okay.
Bye
Bye,
everyone. I'm
Elon.
stopping the
Bye.
feed now.